endless supply of tea and sandwiches, and perhaps a drop of something stronger if desired. I ask the man in front of me what's to come next. "You're asking the wrong guy," he replies. "At an Irish wake, it's the women who run everything." In fact, next was that the church sacristan, Goretti Daly, began the religious part of the event, a short Bible reading, a decade of the Rosary, and a rendition of Amazing Grace. Later, she's keen to correct misapprehensions about Irish wakes, which she says outsiders like me still have. They're thinking about the old traditions, Goretti says. In the old days, people might stop the clock when the person dies, or turn the mirror to the wall and make sure the curtains are drawn because the spirit of a dead can't be allowed to escape. But Irish ways have moved on. Although, Goretti adds, not always for the better. In Irish cities and large towns, death, she thinks, is now too commercial. It's big business. A wake at home is a different thing entirely. It's a celebration of a life and of where it was lived.
Vincent Dowd there, with some apt last words for this week. I'm Pascal Harter. The producer was Polly Hope. We'll be back with more of the real lives behind the global headlines next weekend. So do join us again here on the BBC World Service.
That was the BBC program.
Good morning, Manitoba. Hopefully you had a great weekend. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us on Information Radio, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Well, summer rolled in yesterday and made its appearance. Kind of skipped right over a nice spring day and went right into feeling like, shorts weather and hot out there even in moments in the sun. This morning's a little bit of a mixed bag. We actually had some dark skies and some lightning when I was coming in just about an hour ago here. So that seems to have subsided. In downtown Winnipeg, at least, we are partly cloudy currently, and we're expecting a high of 26 degrees. In Brandon, over to the west, mix of sun and cloud, high of 27 for you today. And in Thompson, a 60% chance of showers this morning. Your high is 20. Morning show's on till 8:37 a.m. Sierra Sanders is directing today and covering the commute. Hi, Sierra. Hello, Mr. Addie Yummy, behind the controls. Abby's on air covering weather and is our senior tech. And there's Mr. Darren Marash, who is our YouTube producer. So say hello if you're watching the show stream. Let's get into developing news this morning from our news center in Manitoba. 2 minutes to 6 o'clock. Here now is Heather Wells with our headlines.
Good morning. Well, a Sikh man in Winnipeg hopes to soon write the exam to become a Winnipeg police constable. Jaspal Singh Gill wanted to write the recruitment exam last month, but he was told he had to remove his kirpan first. He says devout Sikhs must wear the ceremonial dagger at all times. Now the Winnipeg Police Service is developing a new policy. We'll hear his reaction coming up. And people in Transcona were shocked yesterday when they saw a car flipped on its side and debris littering Redonda Street. Police say a man was airlifted to hospital in critical condition. Pam Heafy was surprised to see the police helicopter, or the STARS helicopter, I should say, inside the city. We'll hear how often that happens in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thanks.
We're about to hear how the Western Premiers are meeting in Kananaskis. That story coming up on World Report today. In the first hour of the show, we're going to be talking about Canadians reacting to Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's decision to launch a referendum on Alberta leaving Canada. So we're going to recap what's being said across the country, and we're about to hear how that is expected to be a big part of this meeting, even though they are meeting to talk trade largely. In addition, coming up, my next guest in the first hour of the show, I should say my first guest, is going to talk to us all about endometriosis. She's spreading awareness, and there's a local event coming up. So we'll hear about that. Stay with us.
Today on Q, Robbie Hoffman only had one question at the top of her mind when she started doing stand-up comedy. Where can I go to bomb? She'll tell you how failure ultimately helped her succeed and why playing a character based on her own life in the TV show Hacks was horrifying.
I should be both your assistants.
Great, you're hired.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Martina Fitzgerald. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith will be hosting her Western counterparts today and tomorrow in Kananaskis. And this time, the annual conference is being watched even more closely than usual. This is supposed to be a chance for Western leaders to agree to common priorities before all of the country's premiers gather later this summer. But lately, there's been a lot of disagreement among this group. Let's go to Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. Janice, Danielle Smith is chairing these talks. What has she been saying?
Well, far from avoiding the awkwardness of the national unity crisis, she may have just kicked off by indulging the demands of the minority of separatists in her province for a referendum on Alberta's future. On Friday, Danielle Smith seemed to lean into it. In the wake of a court decision that found separatist organizers had breached the duty to consult with Indigenous peoples, Alberta's premier suggested a solution to this legal hurdle might be reopening the 1982 Constitution Act to revisit its section on Indigenous rights.
My reading of it is that it was never intended to continue being open-ended and redefined by the court to create new and increasing rights over and over again. And if there's an appetite among the other premiers to talk about defining that even further through some kind of constitutional amendment, then, I'm open to having that conversation.
Other premiers grappling with reconciliation and treaty rights in their jurisdictions haven't suggested the path forward is to remove or diminish these rights. So it's unclear that any premier except her wants to have this conversation, even in British Columbia. On the day Smith announced her referendum question, Premier David Eby positioned himself in front of a giant Canadian flag to once again condemn what he's called the bad behaviour of Alberta's premier.
I fundamentally disagree with her approach to Canadian unity. And that is just something that we're going to have to agree to disagree on and move past.
Setting aside this referendum for a moment, Janice, what else might come up at this meeting?
Well, in past years, Western premiers have used these talks to push for a common front on issues like the need for the federal government to invest in trade infrastructure. But at the moment, premiers appear to be competing with each other for federal attention to secure major project designations and bespoke deals for their priority industries. So we'll see whether putting them in a room together can recreate more of a Team Canada vibe.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
That is Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Today, an independent international tribunal begins its investigation into residential schools in Canada. The Permanent People's Tribunal has been independently investigating human rights abuses around the world since 1979. This week, it will determine whether Canada committed crimes against humanity, including genocide. CBC Indigenous reporter Joy Spearchief Morris has more.
As Indigenous people, we are so tired. And tired because it's a tsunami of grief that are hitting us every day.
Nakaset has been waiting for this day for over 2 years. As executive director of the Native Women's Shelter of Montreal, she requested the Permanent People's Tribunal come to Canada. It's an independent international court of opinion that investigates human rights abuses across the globe. Nakaset said she hopes the tribunal will not only evaluate the level of crimes committed, but also educate Canadians about residential schools, where for over 150 years, Indigenous children experienced physical, cultural, and sexual abuse.
We have to push the needle. So it might be large, it might be a little bit, but it's something.
In 2021, Tecumloops Secwepemc announced over 200 suspected unmarked graves on the grounds of the former Kamloops residential school. The National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation estimates over 4,000 Indigenous children across Canada died while attending residential school. This week, a panel of 7 judges will hear from survivors. There will also be testimony from experts on residential schools and unmarked graves. Krista Bigcanoe is the lead prosecutor for the tribunal.
And not just in my mind, but in my legal opinion, there is more than enough evidence to demonstrate and meet the legal tests for everything that's being alleged.
The tribunal will give an interim ruling on Friday. A full decision is not expected until September. Joy Spearchief Morris, CBC News, Ottawa.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says a deal to end the war in Iran could come today. Rubio is in India as negotiations continue between Washington and Tehran.
We have what I think is a pretty solid thing on the table in terms of their ability to open up the straits, get the straits open enter into a very real, significant, time-limited negotiation on the nuclear matters. And hopefully we can pull it off. It has a lot of support in the Gulf. It has a lot of support globally. Every country that we've walked through it understands it's not just very reasonable, but it's the right thing for the world to get done.
Over the weekend, U.S. President Donald Trump told negotiators not to rush into a deal. This morning, Iran's foreign ministry says the two sides have reached conclusions on many topics, but that does not mean they're close to signing an agreement. The United Kingdom is accusing Russia of jamming the signal on one of its planes. British Defense Secretary John Healey was on his way back from Estonia when the GPS stopped functioning. Anna Cunningham has details from London.
The GPS tracking system on the British military RAF jet was disabled. The internet was also inaccessible, leaving the 3-hour flight in the dark. British military pilots were forced to use a different navigation system. On board, the British Defence Secretary John Healey, political and military advisers, photographers and a journalist from the Times of London. This incident last Thursday happened days after 2 Russian jets intercepted an RAF spy plane above the Black Sea. The British Ministry of Defence said the Russian planes had repeatedly and dangerously flown so close it triggered the jet's emergency systems. Baltic countries have frequently accused Russia of aviation signal jamming. Last September, a plane carrying the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen was forced to use paper maps after its systems were jammed. Landing in Belgium, authorities there laid the blame at Russia. This latest incident has been described as reckless Russian interference by a British military source, but it's unclear if the British Defence Secretary was deliberately targeted. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
About 50,000 people in Orange County, California are still out of their homes, bracing for a possible explosion. A tank full of toxic chemicals at an aerospace center has been heating up for days, and the pressure has been building. But interim fire chief TJ McGovern says there is one positive sign.
We noticed a potential crack towards the top, and what that showed us was that it could not be as high pressure as we thought because of the crack. It was a very high-risk, low-frequency operation, but we got positive info.
Shelters and hotels in Orange County are packed with people who've been evacuated from their homes. The potential blast radius is more than 23 square kilometers. Pope Leo's first major teaching document is out, and it's all about artificial intelligence. The encyclical urges governments to slow down in the rush to develop AI. It warns AI could lead to the concentration of power, weaken the rights of workers, and spread more misinformation. Megan Williams has details.
Con viva gratitudine ci ritroviamo.
Pope Leo's first encyclical treats artificial intelligence as one of the defining power struggles of this era. The document, Magnifica Humanitas, the grandeur of humanity, calls for stronger laws, independent oversight, and more public control over how AI is built and used. Leo released it on the 135th anniversary of Pope Leo XIII's landmark encyclical on workers' rights. And that's how it's framed, AI as the new industrial revolution. At the Vatican launch was Christopher Olah, a co-founder of Anthropic, one of the major AI companies. His presence signaled the Church wants this message heard by the people who are actually building the technology. Leo's concerns run from war to the workplace. With the Pope warning, workers could be forced to adapt to machines rather than machines being designed around people. A key concern, says founder of Catholic Magisterium AI, Canadian Matthew Harvey Saunders.
There'll be a lot of people who've defined their existence pursuing skills, and to have their life's work all of a sudden gone because an AI and robot can do that job. I think we all can appreciate how crushing that's going to be for people.
The Pope warns, too, that deadly decisions must not be handed over to AI systems, sharply rejecting the idea that technology can make war more acceptable. Megan Williams, CBC News, Toronto.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Martina Fitzgerald. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg, where the weather is, well, kind of weird. Saw some lightning this morning to the east, and still a little bit of cloud cover. That should bypass us, though. We only have a 30% chance of showers here in Winnipeg, and we're going to have a warm start to the week and a hot end to the week. Thanks for being with us on CBC. This hour on the show, my first guest grew up with relatives who had endometriosis. She now lives with this and says our medical system needs to do better to help people living with this chronic disease. She will be in studio to raise some more awareness about endo and tell us more about an upcoming local event as well, so stay tuned for that. Also this hour on the show, we are going to dip into what you might have heard on the news, which is the Western Premier's meeting in Kananaskis, including Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew. We're going to talk more, though, about the referendum in Alberta. For the third time in a half century, unity in Canada will be put to the test. So we'll look at that through the lens of the Western Premier's meeting. Right now, let's go to other developing news headlines with Heather Wells. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a road blockade set up by the province has been cleared by First Nations in Manitoba's Interlake. A bulldozer flattened a pile of rocks on a road that serves the St. Martin Emergency Outlet Channel. The land around that area has been used by First Nations for generations to harvest, hunt, and fish. We're going to hear from the Interlake Reserves Tribal Council, which represents 7 communities in that area. And the city of Winnipeg is proposing changes aimed at speeding up housing construction in areas where sewer and water infrastructure needs upgrades. Developers say projects can get stuck because no one wants to be the first to pay for improvements that will also benefit future developments. We'll hear more about that in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's get into our forecast. Good morning, Abby. How are you?
Great, Marcy. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I got in my yard yesterday. I love being in my yard. I'm one of those people. I was going to say, I came up with a term. Now, maybe it's already...
Bring it on.
Watch, I'll Google it and it'll be famous, but I think I made it up. Okay. So I was thinking, I'm not a gardener, because when I see people who are really, really gardeners, I'm I cannot call myself that. But I love being in my yard and I love puttering around and I always buy the Easy Care plants. So I'm a yardner.
Okay, a yardner. That's
Does
nice.
Does that work? Yeah.
Yardner.
Yeah. I don't know if my thumb is green, but man, I love being in my city yard. I just love it.
Well, we're in for days that you would really want to spend time in your garden, and even on your deck or your patio. You can now spend time there because you're going to start getting some more reasonable pleasant conditions. Looking at the start of the week, it's a cloudy one across the province this morning. We're looking at more a stable and mild day ahead with temperatures just on the rise. We're going to see quiet start to the week across most of the region, though we're spotting some foggy conditions around the Churchill area this morning. Outside of that, it's going to be stable with only a slim chance of localized showers as we move through the morning in some areas. For the Red River Valley region here, this Monday morning, we're waking up, in the city to comfortable conditions. Here in Winnipeg, we're looking at 14 degrees, depending on where you are. But most regions down south, we're seeing 14s and 15s. Partly cloudy skies as we prepare for a warm day ahead with some breezy winds shifting to the northwest as we get into the day. We'll see a daily high reach 26 today and similar conditions across, the southern regions, rising from low teens into the 20s under a mix of sun and clouds. While in the central and northern part of the province, we will see this shift in landscape as around the Power Flin-Flon through Thompson Gillam, temperatures actually sitting between 0 and 10 degrees at this time. But Churchill still seems to be holding on to that freezing point of, I just want to stay around 0 for now because of these misty conditions I'm having. But other communities up north, we're seeing milder conditions on the way, and it's mostly clear in the north. So overall, it's going to be a very calm and mild start to the week, and we will start seeing temperatures in a typical 20s as we get into this last stretch of the month of May.
Yeah, and then it's going to be in the 30s all of a sudden. It's
so let's just enjoy this 20s for now before we start doing the 30s.
We have to water like mad.
Yep.
All right, thanks, Abby.
But for today, we're warming up to 26 in the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get into what's going on with Sierra Sanders and the commute. There's a couple things, right?
Yes, there is a potential closure that I want to look into a little bit on Portage Avenue, but I just want to make sure I have those dates right for everybody and confirm that those are correct. So I'm going to look into that a little bit and see if there's any construction construction closures to note, but so far things are looking pretty good on your commute so far. Been pretty quiet on the commuter line. So to me, it sounds like your early morning commute is looking pretty good. But if that does change and there is something that is getting in your way, give me a call. That number is 204-788-3093.
So the news center is talking about this closure that Sierra alluded to. This is Portage Avenue eastbound. So this is going to continue through on May 23rd. Oh yeah, we do have to check this. See, I'm saying it out loud. So we're going to check with our news department here. There's just some discrepancy, but it's on Portage Avenue, so it'll affect a lot of people. So we'll just triple check that and get back on the air. Right now, imagine going on an endless journey for a diagnosis after years of pain and irregular bleeding that could last for months. Then you have major surgery, which doesn't stop the pain necessarily. And now you're on pills, 14 pills a day. This is just part of my next guest story about living with endometriosis, and she's only 26 years old. Endometriosis is a chronic disease that can impact anyone born with a uterus. It happens when cells similar to the lining of the uterus implant abnormally outside the uterus, and then they form lesions, cysts, and other growths, which can extend beyond the reproductive area. Becca Miskew is in studio. She's co-director of an upcoming Run to End Endo in Winnipeg this week, and I'm so pleased you're here to talk about this and raise awareness. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you actually shared that you have young nieces. I want to start here. And you think about them when you're motivated to spread awareness about endo. Why is that?
It breaks my heart to think that their only option would be major surgery and then a life of medication.
Mm-hmm.
That's unacceptable. That's not living.
Yeah. Did you know a lot about endo when you were like coming up and when your pain would have started? Like how young were you when your body started feeling like something's wrong?
Yeah, since my first period, you pretty much know something's wrong. For a lot of us, it starts there. You don't really know anything about it growing up. I didn't know anything about
Neither
it
did I.
until
I knew my aunt had something going on.
Yeah.
And that was all anyone talked about in the family.
It's very taboo. You know, there's still a big stigma around it. Because
still today.
Yeah, because it's largely seen as a reproductive health, a women's health issue. And that's kind of where the issue comes from and why none of us know about it. So then we don't know what questions to ask. We just don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
We just know we're in pain.
When you had surgery last year,
I did, yeah.
Your spirit is like everyone's going to understand who Becca is right away. You threw a party for this. Let's just talk about that for a second.
Absolutely, yes.
What'd you call it?
We called it the uterus party because this, for a lot of people, having a total hysterectomy would be heartbreaking and kind of life-ending. For me, it was kind of liberating, I say. It's definitely a long journey to get there, and they still, you have to go through, because I'm under 30, I have to go through multiple opinions and jump through multiple hoops. But finally getting to that finish line was very, I would say it was like a light. Not at the end of the tunnel, but it was a light finally in the tunnel.
It was something to happen with your health. What was it like for you trying to get better health care around this when you were looking for a diagnosis, looking for care?
Yeah. So part of the problem stems from not only do we, the general public, know nothing about endo, but the medical system really doesn't know anything about it either. There's so little research on endometriosis, which is shocking because it affects 1 in 10 people born with a uterus. And so I had initially started with my family doctor, and we were kind of going through everything and all of my symptoms. I've missed a period for 2 months and then had one for 3 months straight. I was losing so much blood I needed to be on iron supplements. And my doctor was just like, oh, we're not worried about it. This isn't a problem. This is normal. Which that's never normal. Period pain and irregularity is not normal.
What happens when you walk away? I'm going to interject here for a minute. And you walk away and someone's told you this is normal.
Yeah, you feel crazy. We call it very often, endo patients are used to medical gaslighting. And I say part of it's definitely gaslighting and doctors just not wanting to help. But part of it is they're not educated. They don't know anything. And you walk away, your doctor's like, nothing's wrong. You're fine. This is normal. And you're like, am I just weak? Am I like, is it all in my head?
No one call me if you can't handle the content of this conversation, because I really want to outline some of the specifics here. And this is important for women. So, you could be bleeding for months on end. The pain you talked about, the clotting is what you told me before we came on air. I'd never even thought about how that, like, did you actually say the size of like a ball, like it would be big like that?
Yeah, I was like, I think I was this one. So much happens, but you remember a few
of course.
moments. I was, I think, like 14, and really common that I would stay home from school with my period because it was so painful that I would be throwing up. I wouldn't be able to like stand. And yeah, this one day, so I was home from school, and I had dropped like a mandarin orange sized clot.
Wow. And your doctors told you this is normal.
Well, so this was pretty early on in my experience, so I didn't even know to go to a doctor about this.
Yeah.
I just called my mom terrified. I thought I was dying. She was at work like an hour away, just trying to calm me down. And
where is the support found? Because now we're talking about medical support, but we're also talking about, mental health support to be going through everything because you're now living with this. Is it mostly coming from community now then? How organized is the endo community?
Yeah, you really have to go out and find that mental health, that community support on your own. Nothing really structured exists like that in the province that I'm aware of. So there's this large Facebook group. This is where social media comes in handy. It really helps. It's where most people in the province, it's called Winnipeg Endometriosis Warriors, and anyone with pelvic pain, I highly recommend to join it. It's a great community of other people going through the same things you're going through.
Now, we just touched the tip of the iceberg here because there's different types of endometriosis, and then it can spread outside your body. So tell me a little bit about what you live with and how it's affecting you.
Yeah, so endo, I would say it starts maybe in the uterus, but it's not really only a menstrual health issue because endometriosis, it can be found all over the body. It's been found like in the wrist, in the shoulder. It's commonly moving into like the diaphragm, obviously like your whole pelvic region, your legs. It's a whole body disease. And so. And
how is the pain that you talk about lesions? So what does it feel like?
Yeah, it feels like, I've been trying to figure out forever how to describe it. It's like someone is taking a knife inside of you and like repeatedly twisting it, moving it around, pulling, stretching all of your organs.
You wrote to the health minister about, more awareness. What are your hopes?
I think my main hope, obviously, more funding, more research, but obviously this needs to start way earlier, like in sex education in school. You learn absolutely nothing about what a normal period is. And so then, you grow up and you drop these crazy clots and you're bleeding for months on end and you think it's normal. The education really needs to start with young kids. And honestly, for girls and boys, everyone needs to be aware of it.
Tell me a little bit about the run.
Yes. So the run is where, this kind of community aspect really comes into it. So the Endometriosis Network Canada is kind of the main resource for Canadians with endometriosis. They really work to provide programming and resources for those of us living with it through support groups and surveys and research and connecting us with the surgeons that are in our
amazing
in our areas. And so
you guys are gathering here at Canadian Mennonite University?
We are, yeah. So it'll be at Canadian Mennonite University on Sunday, May 31st. Registration 9:30, and we're expecting close to 75 to 100 people so far. And, it's a day where we say we run to end endo, but we're all chronically ill. So it's very loosely called a run. And then we'll have an afternoon where we listen, personal experiences, some research on it.
Yeah.
We've got Moontime Connections coming, and we're hosting a period product drive for them.
Oh, lovely.
At the event. Yeah.
Enjoy. I hope you get a big turnout. Thank you very much for coming in and talking about your health and supporting the health of so many other people. Appreciate
Thanks so much for helping us raise awareness.
That is in studio with us, Becca Miskew, the co-director of that upcoming run we're talking about to end and Endo in Winnipeg this week. So Sunday, May 31st, Canadian Mennonite University out on Shaftesbury, right on off Grant there, off Corden. You can check in 9:30, and you can go to endometriosisnetwork.com/way to help/run to end endo if you want more information. And you can also then see the full network and get more support across the country.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
It looks like this is maybe a one-day blip when farmers across the province need hot and dry.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take.
In general, it's harder to find a job even if you're educated.
I'm Marjorie Dowhouse. From 12:15 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
When I was 5 or 6, my parents gave me seeds and helped me plant them. That was probably close to 70 years ago. And here I am still gardening.
It just brings everyone together. Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you weekdays on CBC.
It is 6:26 Monday morning. It's 16 degrees in Winnipeg already. We're the hot spot in the province. And next on the show, let's turn to international stories. Travelers entering Canada will now be asked about their travel history and symptoms related to Ebola. Unlike the U.S., there is no immediate plan for a travel ban, though, if you're arriving from countries in East Africa where they're experiencing, as you know, an Ebola outbreak. Friday, the World Health Organization raised the public health risk in the Democratic Republic of Congo from high to very high. Joanne Liu is here to talk about it. She's Director of Pandemic Emergency Readiness Lab at McGill University. She's also a former international president of Doctors Without Borders. Good morning.
Good morning.
Have we seen a risk at very high before when you look at what past outbreaks?
If you're talking about past outbreak of Ebola, there was an enhanced risk in 2014, 2016 when there was the biggest outbreak in West Africa where more than 28,000 people were infected and 11,000 people died. It was a massive outbreak, and it did, I would say, paralyze the whole region back then.
Based on you were with Doctors Without Borders and have lived through past outbreaks, what are the lessons that are being applied here, and what worries you right now?
Well, what we learned from this big outbreak in West Africa in 2014, 2016 is that there's some specific reasons that make it bigger and more worrisome. And it's the fact here that the epicenter of the outbreak is happening in the Ituri province in Democratic Republic of Congo, happens in a population that is mobile. So meaning if the population is mobile, the virus is mobile. It's happening as well at the intersection of 3 countries, Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, and South Sudan. We know as well that there is some unrest in the country, in the province. There are armed groups, and the violence has created displacement of population. More than 1 million internally displaced people in this region. So if you are displaced, you are more living in precarious condition, and therefore you might not have the money to go and see a doctor if you were sick. So, and then first and foremost is we have chains of transmission that are not connected to one to another, meaning that we're still unsure yet at what is the first 0 cases. It means that they are evolving on their own. And so that means that it's as if we have like few outbreaks at the same time. So that is very worrisome.
So given that American officials, you talked about the movement of people from this region, as you know, they're restricting entry to some travelers from affected regions. Do you think Canada should consider a ban like that as well?
I don't think that Canada should consider such a ban. We learned from the past as well. First of all, it is not recommended by the World Health Organization, nor by the International Health Regulation. But in addition, our past experience is the fact that when you do travel ban, is people circumvent them and they take other routes and you don't catch them, the people who are at risk. And so you even put yourself more at risk. It's counterintuitive, but this is things that can happen.
What are the most effective ways then to lessen Ebola's international spread?
Well, the best and effective way is to fight it where it is. And right now it is happening in DRC and few cases in Uganda, but the epicenter is in Democratic Republic of Congo in the province of Ituri. So we need to beef up the response. We need to help them to identify all the cases, to put them in isolation, to get to the contacts of those people who are infected. Right now, we know there's more than 1,600 people that needs to be reached to let them know they've been in contact with someone infected. Only 21% of them have been reached. So it's important that where it's happening, we have the best resources to care for those people, but as well as them to avoid the spread of it. And then one of the two key other things that is really, really important is safe and dignifying funerals, to make sure that people don't do their ritual, unfortunately, by touching a deceased body that's been infected. You can catch the disease. So this is why we need to do safe funerals. And in addition, we need to really do good information education to the community. Because if we don't get the community on board, they will not do the right thing. Like a few days ago, they burned down an Ebola center because they wanted to retrieve one of the body to do
So
the
people
funeral.
need better education for how to do it in the area. Joanne Liu, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
With the Monday Morning latest on Ebola, that's Joanne Liu, the Director of Pandemic Emergency Readiness Lab at McGill University, former International President of Doctors Without Borders. Your Manitoba news from CBC is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:31, it is 16 degrees. A beautiful weekend and a beautiful start to the week. A mix of sun and clouds in Winnipeg today. A bit of a northwest breeze developing, a high of 26. A group of Interlake First Nations has torn down a provincial blockade. A bulldozer clearing a pile of rocks that had been blocking an access road. The road has been under construction in recent years to service the Lake St. Martin Emergency Outlet Channel. People from 7 First Nations, including Dauphin River, use the land around the road to harvest and hunt. Chief Lawrence Latander says the province had promised to keep the area accessible, but that didn't happen.
Obviously, they're infringing on our treaty rights. We have every right to hunt here. We've hunted here for many, many years. There are people here that are with us that have actually come hunting here. And today we're here to get back what's ours.
The province says it set up a gate to restrict access as part of the environmental licensing process, but is now reconsidering after receiving feedback. The city of Winnipeg says it's seeing more housing projects delayed by disputes over who should pay for costly sewer and infrastructure upgrades needed to support new development. The city is now proposing a new system to allow developers who pay those upfront costs to recover money from future projects that benefit from the upgrades. Jeff Milnes is the president of Progressive Real Estate.
This is a good first step. The more certainty you have going into a project, the more likely you are to do it, right? Which would ultimately just lead to more building and better things for our city, right?
We're just going to get our director.
Oh, sorry
there
about that. Sorry.
Great.
City officials say the issue is becoming more common as the city pushes for more infill housing, and council will look at the issue this week. A sick man hopes to be able to write the exam to get into the Winnipeg Police Service as the service develops a new policy. The policy would allow sick people to wear a kirpan, a ceremonial dagger, while applying for a job. Last month, Jaspal Singh Gill was asked to remove his kirpan in order to write a recruitment exam. He wants to see more education around kirpans and their importance in his religion.
Kirpan is not carried as a weapon. It is a scared religious article that symbolizes courage, responsibility, self-defense, and our duty to protect the weak and stand against injustice.
The kirpan is one of the 5 articles of faith that initiated Sikhs must wear at all times. People in Transcona were shocked yesterday when they saw a car flipped on its side and debris littering Redonda Street. Police say a man was airlifted to hospital in critical condition after a single vehicle crash. Pam Heafy was surprised to see a helicopter from Stars in the city.
I saw the Stars helicopter coming down. My first reaction was, okay, both my boys are home. One of them had just come home, so I knew that both my kids were home.
Stars says it responded to 6 emergencies in Winnipeg in the past fiscal year. Police say the driver was the only person in their car. There were no reports of other injuries. Premiers representing the Western provinces and 3 territories gather in Kananaskis, Alberta for a 2-day meeting starting today. It comes as the rift over a proposed pipeline to the BC coast, along with Alberta's plan to holding a referendum on separation, will likely be key topics of discussion. Premier Smith and Eby have found themselves at odds over recent months. Smith has voiced her concerns with BC when it comes to the potential pipeline project.
I think it's leadership in British Columbia who continues to try to put barriers in the way of us getting our product to market.
And Eby has criticized Ottawa's memorandum of understanding with Alberta.
We cannot have bad behavior decide who gets engaged with by the federal government.
Eby adds he disagrees with the approach Smith has on separatism, and he also says the situation will add some awkwardness to the meeting. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Well, Pope Leo has made a historical personal apology for the role the Holy See has played in legitimizing slavery and for having failed to condemn it for centuries. Leo calls the Vatican's record a wound in Christian memory. Previous popes have apologized for Christians' involvement in the transatlantic slave trade, but no pope has publicly acknowledged, much less apologized for, the role popes played, including giving European sovereigns explicit authority to control and enslave people. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
It is time now to dip into this regional forecast. We are expecting by the end of the week that we could be seeing temperatures in the 30s. We're not quite starting there today, but we are starting to see the sky in downtown Winnipeg brighten up. And it looks like it is going to be a beautiful day today and pretty warm, too. Abby's here now.
Yeah, Marcy, the province will be seeing more like clear conditions in the north. That's the stats. And then down south, we should see this warming up conditions in the southern parts. Though I'm spotting some foggy conditions from the Thompson area, Gillam, all the way towards Churchill and the York region this morning. Forecast for Winnipeg and nearby areas in the Red River Valley region brings a mix of sun and clouds to start. There's a slim chance of morning showers in some areas, and you might have noticed the spark in the sky at some point this morning. Some thunderstorms actually rolled through in some areas. Current temperatures, we're seeing temperature hover between 15 and 16 depending on where you are in the city. Morning temperature is really going to stay around that range before we climb to a high of 26 under some breezy and maybe some windy conditions later in the day. And similar conditions we're seeing across the south, peaking in the high 20s later. But looking at current conditions from Morden towards the Headingley area, we're seeing temperatures around 14 degrees at this time. You get close to 29 later in the day. Brandon is partly cloudy at 9 degrees. We will see a high around 27. Dauphin all the way towards the Russell-Roblin area expects a lot of sunshine, and the forecast high will be around 24. Current temperature sitting at 11 degrees at this time. Gimli, you're looking at a mix of sun and clouds in the Interlake region today. 16 degrees, a slim chance of showers. Also in the forecast, your highs will be around 25. The Power Flin Flon, you're already seeing mainly sunny conditions. You're sitting close to 8 degrees. You get a mild high of 23. For Norway House, nearby, we're looking at 9 degrees, a good chance of morning showers, and the forecast warming up to 22. While for Thompson and the Split Lake area, we're noticing this shallow fog in that part of the province. Current temperatures around 9. A good chance of morning showers also in the forecast. You get a high of 20 later. Similar conditions we're seeing around the Lane Lake area. Misty conditions there. You are about 5 degrees at this time. You get to 18 later. Gillam also seeing fog at 2 degrees. Showers in the forecast. Daily high of 11. We have haze around the Tonula Lake area. Good chance of afternoon showers. Your highs would only climb to 9 degrees. While for the Churchill area, we're seeing foggy conditions there. You're still stuck at 0 for now. A slim chance of late day showers and a high of 4 degrees. So across board, it's more like a seasonal Monday across the province with more like mild to warm temperatures dominating the landscape. And we're in for a warm one in the city today. We do get close to 27 degrees in the city. I see 26 here, but we get close to 27. But right now, it is 15 degrees in the city.
How is it the last week of May already? It's wild, right?
May I ask you why?
Yep, I don't have an answer though. Okay, let's get into what's happening in traffic and remind you where you can call if you see any issues popping up. Hopefully not, but here's Sierra Sanders.
Yeah, it's been pretty smooth so far, Marcy. The commuter line has been pretty quiet on this early morning Monday commute, but things are moving pretty smoothly outside of our windows here at the corner of Portage and Spence. But if that does change and something does get in your way, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Sierra. Time to talk to Crystalie Ramlakan. She's here with our business news. Good morning to you.
Hi, good morning, Marcy.
So Prime Minister Mark Carney is going to New York City this week. What are the details?
Well, he's going on Wednesday and Thursday to meet with business leaders to try and court more investment, which is a running theme of his time in office. So the Prime Minister's office made the announcement yesterday, a day before Parliament reconvenes for the round of sitting days before the summer break. And the announcement says Carney will meet with CEOs, entrepreneurs, business leaders, and money managers to pitch Canada as an investment destination. And this comes just weeks before the Canada-US-Mexico Agreement on Free Trade enters its mandatory review period. And as we know, U.S. tariffs have been triggering a trade war with our country. And Carney is also scheduled to deliver remarks at the Economic Club of New York on Thursday. And that address will focus on Canada's new economic strategy and how it is progressing.
Let's keep talking about trade for a moment here. A delegation from India is coming this week, arriving this week to discuss trade and investment. And what do we know about this arrival?
Well, Canada's government is billing it as the largest ever business delegation from India to any country. So India's Commerce and Industry Minister will be accompanied by more than 100 senior business representatives from industries such as mining, energy, automotive, and aerospace. And he will meet with Canada's Minister of International Trade to continue discussions about a comprehensive economic and partnership agreement between the two countries. And the Indian minister is also expected to meet with Prime Minister Mark Carney and CEOs of leading companies, startups, and pension funds. And the government says it aims to double trade with India to $70 billion by 2030. And Indian officials say energy security and transition are key to the relationship and were also a big part of the discussions when Carney visited India in March. Now, Canada and India have been in trade talks since 2010, but talks were shut down in 2023 after the federal government accused New Delhi of playing a role in the assassination of a Canadian Sikh activist in Surrey, BC. However, Carney has made it a priority to reset those relations after he became Prime Minister last year.
And before you go this morning, I hope people are watching on YouTube because we have a special guest to introduce our last question. Here he is. Can you see him?
I see him. There's Grogu.
It's our little Grogu. He's actually our control room mascot. We put a toque on him in the Winnipeg winter so he can handle it. Big Hugh's yours. He says CBC Manitoba's the way. Thank you, Grogu. Star Wars movie featuring Grogu. Of course, The Mandalorian and Grogu had its opening weekend. How did it do at the box office?
You know what? So it's actually the first time in 7 years that a new Star Wars film has launched on the big screen. So estimates indicate that Disney's The Mandalorian and Grogu surpassed initial box office projections, tallying $82 million in domestic ticket sales. But while the film based on Disney Plus's show The Mandalorian outpaced predictions, it so far has tallied less than 2018's Solo, A Star Wars Story. So at $84 million, it was the previous lowest opening Star Wars project in this era of Disney Star Wars releases. So, you know what though? This film actually benefited from premium large format screenings like IMAX and Dolby Cinema. So 41% of tickets were for these upgraded, more expensive showings. So, maybe this is a way that theaters are also, trying to make more money, as I don't think that people are going to the movies as often as they did, pre-pandemic still. And of course, The box office is not the only metric that Disney will be keeping an eye on. So it has other avenues for revenue growth, such as merchandise, like I think we just saw there, its streaming service and theme parks. So Star Wars still generates more than $1 billion in retail sales each year. And The Mandalorian series is the most watched original show on Disney Plus, with more than 1.3 billion hours watched globally. And when I was learning about this story today to, bring to you guys, I was thinking that Grogu would be good merchandise because he's so cute.
He is so cute. I don't actually even know whose it is. I can't remember how it made its way in here, but he's been in here for a while. All right, Crystalie, thank you.
Thanks, Marcy.
That's Crystalie Ramlicam with our CBC Business News. It is 6:45 a.m. and it's been a weekend of digesting tumultuous news here in Canada. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's decision to launch a referendum for Alberta to separate from Canada is in the news. And for those who have lived through 2 Quebec referendums, it's an experience of déjà vu. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes here on Information Radio. So stay tuned. We'll have a full interview about it. But we also want to dip into what people had to say across the country this weekend about this. These are some of the callers to CBC's cross-country checkup when the question was, how should Ottawa respond to Alberta separatism and what's at stake for you?
You told our producers you'd be moving back to Alberta if the province separates. Why?
That's the plan. We moved out of Alberta about 6 years ago, mainly for the weather and the retirement lifestyle and golf. But we've taken a major interest in independence vote and the economic prospects for the Alberta as an independent country would be so good that I go back to the bad winters for it.
There are two types of separatists in Alberta. I mean, there are the soft separatists that feel that we would be better off economically, but there is a very small but very vocal and powerful group in Alberta parading the facade of economic benefits, but the overall agenda is going to be basically taking a vision of Alberta that they believe in and their followers believe in and basically shoving it down the collective throats of Albertans.
I want a very patriotic show of why we should stay in Canada. I love Canada. I'm an Albertan. I do not want to separate. I believe, and I can see that the fiscal narrative that the separatists are giving people and people are slurping up is fantasy. I want to see flags raised. I want people to understand we're better together. I'm a senior citizen. I'm now looking at where am I going to live in Canada because I will not stay in Alberta if they leave.
I loved Alberta. I'm back obviously in Cape Breton now. I have a ton of friends and family out there. And I'm extremely worried about the divisiveness of this topic, for one. But I agree with a lot of the other callers that it's deeper than just one thing to separate. It sounds so easy. It's not easy. And I do not like the influence from the United States. We know that the separatist leaders went and met with the Trump administration 3 times at least that we know of. We know Danielle Smith has been at Mar-a-Lago. Like this is not okay. This is way deeper than just saying Ottawa messes around with us all the time. That's a scapegoat as far as I'm concerned. So it's dividing people. There's people I don't talk to anymore, won't talk to me. This is just one of those easy clickbait, rage bait issues. Like it's deeper than that, and that's what worries me.
Those were some of the callers on Cross Country Checkup yesterday responding to the question how should Ottawa respond to Alberta separatism and what's at stake for you? Lots of calls across the country. You can always listen to the whole conversation on the CBC Listen app. Well, our next conversation is with Laurie Turnbull, who joins us live. She's a political scientist at Dalhousie University. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's interesting because not everyone in this country, of course, will have lived through a referendum. I have. You have, I believe.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I mean, What is your sense of this moment when you look over the weekend, these campaigns to keep Alberta in, Canada launching? What's the reaction been like?
I think the reaction is very nervous. And there's a sense, I think, in the rest of the country that we're walking on eggshells a bit because we don't want to say anything that's going to make things worse. And I think there's been a number of commentators and people on social media that have said, be careful how you use your space when you're talking about this, because if there's a really emotional reaction on the federal side and people are reacting to what's happening, there could be a response from the separatist side that makes this even more of an on fire issue. And so how to handle it is really important. I think there's a sense that nobody's happy with the question as it is. And I mean, let's be honest, think back to those referendum questions, look back at the ones that happened in Quebec. They weren't exactly clear and easy to understand necessarily either. But I think in this moment, the Federalist side is saying, why on earth did you put this on a ballot in the first place? And then the Separatists are saying, this is not what we wanted. We wanted to go, we want an exit strategy. We don't want a question that sets up another question. So just an all-purpose, I think, sense of malaise and a sense of walking on eggshells.
For provinces, I mean, like ours that are, in the West and watching this, regionally as well, and you talk about being careful about discussing it. It's difficult to understand how to look at some of the movement, talk about the reality that some movements like this can be co-opted by those that would want to sort of lead a movement and whip something up to make it bigger than it may be by population size. It's difficult to even have that conversation without feeling like you're maybe delegitimizing someone's concerns, because it just sort of could fuel the fire for someone saying, no, I want to separate, has nothing to do with anyone coming in and, co-opting my opinion or influencing me. This is what I believe. Is that part of the carefulness that you're talking about in terms of really just needing to report on the numbers factually of the groups and walk through this step by step?
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that in many ways, like a lot of things in politics, there are so many complicated questions that are attached to something like this. So, for example, there are the economic implications. There are, questions around like what would social policy look like? Like there are so many things that it's hard to predict exactly how it would shake out. That people's emotions when they go into it, it's hard not to be worried. It's hard not to be needing a little bit more information about how this would all unfold. And so I think when we talk about it, there's a concern. I mean, if somebody wants to separate, they want to, right? Like, and that can be an emotional thing, that can be a rational thing, that can be a total benefit cost thing. And like my lot would be better off if Alberta was its own country. It can be affected by all kinds of things. And so the reaction maybe of the Federalist side and the people who are outside of Alberta and hoping that this separation wouldn't come to pass, how people who are in favor of separatism, how they hear those messages is going to be different. And it depends on why you want to separate in the first place.
Let's get to the politics. Tell us how key political leaders are framing the issue, starting with the Prime Minister.
Well, I think we can hear the Prime Minister as the Prime Minister of the country. He wants the country to stay together. He doesn't want this to come to fruition. I think he's choosing his words carefully. I think he's talking about things like the pipeline, like different ways in which Alberta plays such an important role in Canada and why that's a very important relationship. I think we can hear Pierre Poilievre as well, as the leader of the opposition, as leader of the Conservative Party, saying he's going to fight for Canada. He's on that side of things. But interestingly, he's also an Alberta MP now. And that's not where he's sat for most of his political career. He's typically an Ottawa MP, but now as the representative for Battle River Crowfoot, he also comes to this as somebody who represents people who are sitting on the separatist side. I mean, not everybody in his riding, but he certainly has separatists who are sitting in that riding. And so the questions he gets on a personal level and as the MP, not just as the leader of the opposition, but as the MP for the area, he's going to have some complicated conversations this summer. And
then Pierre Poilievre was also out with his opinion as well.
Yes, Pierre Poilievre being, the leader of the opposition and somebody who's saying, I'm the prime minister in waiting, and as such, I am going to stand up for Canada. And he is going to be I think, going back to that eggshell conversation, he's going to have to be very careful about how he feels Danielle Smith is handling this, how he feels the prime minister is handling this, because people want to make sure that they're being responsible in how they go forward in these assessments. It's not necessarily in Poilievre's interest to be highly critical about how other people are handling it, but at the same time, he wants to be able to have his own voice, and he wants to be able to have impact on the debate. Again, both as a leader of the party and also as an MP from the area.
Before you go this morning, Lori, you talked about the economy here. I mean, the economic, what could potentially happen? What's at stake here with our national economy? How might the referendum question, you think, even just the question, affect private investment in Alberta and elsewhere in Canada? Like, what are the experts saying about that?
That this is not the time for this, right? Like, the fact that there's now a question on the ballot about the future of the province in the country means that private investors are going to have a harder time trusting that this is a good market to invest in, because you don't know how a change in the status of Alberta as a province within Canada, how would that affect the pipeline? How would that affect the federal government's investment, the provincial government's investment, the future of the pipeline, whether this is a good idea? It's, for a private investor, it's just question marks. And it's not, even if, regardless of what happens in this vote in October, it's not going to be over the next day. This is not going to be something that's put to bed the next day. And so the uncertainty will continue regardless of what happens.
It's going to be very interesting to see the Western Premiers meeting in Kananaskis today, isn't it?
Oh, yes. I would love to be a fly on that wall.
Yeah, I think we all would be. All right. Thank you for this.
Thank you, too. Take care.
That is Lori Turnbull with us live, political scientist over at Dalhousie University. We reached her this morning in Ottawa. We're going to hear more about that Kananaskis meeting coming up, because World Report is up in about 4 minutes from now. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're listening locally to CBC Manitoba's Information Radio. We've got some beautiful sunshine downtown now. Let's have a look at our forecast and traffic. We'll tee up the next hour, check in with our news department. Starting with the weather, it's mostly, clear downtown right now. It's 16 degrees as the clouds move on. Today, we're expecting a high of 26 degrees in our forecast. Tonight, a low of 11. Tomorrow, sunshine, 27. Brandon is 10 degrees right now, partly cloudy. Thompson's partly cloudy and 9 degrees. We did have some early morning lightning to the east. It looks like most of that is probably moved on. However, we do have misty conditions up in Lynn Lake, and we have haze up into Dooley. No areas looking like they have rain right now, though there's fog far north around Gillam and Churchill. In the condition in traffic and on your morning commute, you want to watch for Pembina and the Perimeter Highway. There's a stopped semi in the westbound curb lane there. And if you want to call Sierra with any other issues, 788-3093. In the next hour of Information Radio, we bid farewell to one of the Exchange District's iconic galleries with the biggest Winnipeg art auction ever. We'll find out more. In addition, have faith or not. Either way, the government is interested. We're going to check in with our freelance faith columnist about why the government's more interested in your religion now more than ever before, and you might have noticed some census questions to that end. Stay with us. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells in our news center for those local updates.
Good morning. Well, a sick man in Winnipeg hopes to soon write the exam to become a Winnipeg police constable. Jaspal Singh Gill wanted to write the recruitment exam last month, but was told he had to remove his kirpan first. He says devout Sikhs must wear the ceremonial dagger at all times, and being asked to remove it felt like choosing between his faith and his dream of becoming a police officer. We'll hear the latest update on that. And people in Transcona were shocked yesterday when they saw a car flipped on its side and debris littering Redonda Street. Police say a man was airlifted to hospital in critical condition after that single vehicle crash. And Pam Heafy says she's surprised to see a STARS helicopter in the city. We'll hear how often that happens in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thanks.
Also still ahead, I want to mention one other story that we'll have details on just before 8 o'clock. Winnipeggers are invited to share their opinions about what can be built where in our city. We're going to have a city official on live in studio to talk about the plan to rewrite Winnipeg's current zoning bylaws. So stay tuned if you're one of those people that's been looking around and seeing a lot of infill or different things that have different heights in neighborhood. That's what zoning is, right? Zoning and rezoning. It's all about density, height, character, frontage, all the things that actually affect us on a daily basis. So stay tuned. We'll have a discussion about what kind of input they're looking for, and maybe you can give some. I'm Marcy Marcuso. World Report is next on CBC. It's 1 minute to 7.
On The Current. To balance that out, there are many people that could really benefit from these treatments that don't get access to them.
SSRI antidepressants have been around for 50 years, but their effectiveness and how often they're prescribed have come under fire. What do we know about their efficacy, and how should we be looking at other options for depression? It's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Martina Fitzgerald. There is a lot for Western premiers to focus on at their annual conference. Economic growth and trade, Arctic security and defense, public safety and justice. But after weeks of public sparring between the premiers of BC and Alberta, the pipeline debate could throw today's meeting into disarray. Caroline Bargut reports.
As the premiers of the Western provinces and 3 territories prepare to meet in Kananaskis today, they should be focused on shared priorities and economic growth. Instead, the Alberta separatist movement looms large. The province will hold a referendum on October 19th on whether to have another referendum to split from Canada. Jason Nixon is Alberta's finance minister.
Alberta's government believes in allowing our citizens to be able to participate in democracy.
The issue is already dividing the province, says former Alberta Deputy Premier Thomas Lukasik.
I've never seen Alberta as divided as it is right now. Literally, neighbors don't speak with neighbors anymore.
And this isn't the only dispute concerning Premier Danielle Smith. She and BC Premier David Eby have also been exchanging barbs over a proposed pipeline to the BC coast. Monday will be their first face-to-face meeting.
There will be tension.
Laurie Williams is a political science expert at Mount Royal University in Calgary.
It'll be there. It may be discussed in sidebar conversations, but the focus of this meeting is going to be on trade.
She says that is the most pressing issue for the country right now, and the premiers will need to figure out how to remove interprovincial trade barriers and find ways to grow the economy amidst the ongoing challenges with the U.S. Caroline Bargut, CBC News, Calgary.
2 people are slated to appear in a Halifax court today to face charges in connection with a dead newborn. Police discovered the body yesterday afternoon following an extensive search. It began when a woman who had recently given birth arrived at hospital in critical condition. An autopsy will determine the baby's cause of death. 23-year-old Sukhpreet Singh is related to the mother. He and his wife, 26-year-old Ramandeep Kaur, are charged with concealing the body of a child, obstruction, and indignity to a dead body. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says a deal to end the war in Iran could come as early as today. Talks between Washington and Tehran are ongoing, with both sides showing signs of optimism. But the path to a peace agreement is riddled with hurdles, including control over the Strait of Hormuz. The CBC's Willie Lowry has more from Jerusalem.
A framework, but no deal. That's the message coming out of both Tehran and Washington this morning. A spokesperson for Iran's foreign ministry says that while the 2 sides have reached consensus on most topics, no agreement has been signed. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the framework in place has broad support from regional countries and could be signed as soon as today.
So we have what I think is a pretty solid thing on the table in terms of their ability to open up the straits, get the straits open, enter into a very real, significant, time-limited negotiation on the nuclear matters.
While details remain scarce, the deal appears to focus on the Strait of Hormuz, pushing the more difficult nuclear conversation down the road. Dan Shapiro, the former U.S. ambassador to Israel, says after months of war and economic uncertainty, President Donald Trump is looking for an off-ramp.
It's a fairly weak deal from the United States perspective.
Analysts caution that even if a deal is signed, the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, where as much as 20% of the world's oil historically transits through, is unlikely to immediately improve to pre-war levels. Lars Jensen, a former executive at Maersk, says shipping companies will remain cautious for some time.
The shipping lines definitely have experience from that region that they cannot trust any announcements of deals. They would want to see some real action first.
Perhaps more than just signatures on a paper. Willie Lowry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Hospital officials in eastern Congo say a group of men have stormed a hospital treating Ebola patients, the third attack of this kind in just 1 week. There was gunfire, though it's unclear if anyone was hurt. The hospital's medical director says the attackers demanded the bodies of 2 of their relatives. The government in the Democratic Republic of Congo has ordered that all Ebola victims must be buried by medical authorities. That's been met with resistance, but the bodies can be highly contagious and lead to further spread of the disease. Just this past hour, the World Health Organization said in this current Ebola outbreak, there are now 220 suspected deaths. Emergency crews in Orange County, California, have been working through the night trying to avoid a devastating explosion. Since Thursday, they've been trying to stop a massive tank containing toxic chemicals from blowing up. Around 50,000 people have evacuated the area. Many are now staying in shelters as officials work to clear a potential blast zone. Steve Futterman is in Orange County with the latest.
The danger isn't over, but there is a glimmer of hope. The number one worry is extreme pressure that could lead to a catastrophic explosion.
The biggest thing we're concerned with is the pressurization in the tank. The first thing we need to do is make sure there's no pressure in that tank.
TJ McGovern is the interim fire chief overseeing the response. He says crews have detected a small crack that could reduce the pressure. Tom Umberg is a state representative.
That means that pressure may be being released right now. Not vapor, but pressure. And that's a good thing.
The round-the-clock effort continued overnight, with some firefighters entering the danger zone, approaching the tank. The tank, which contains a highly volatile chemical, does have a relief valve, which normally would allow crews to safely remove the chemical, but it's failed. Meanwhile, around 50,000 residents remain under evacuation orders. More than half a dozen centers have been set up, supplying beds and food.
We have snacks here, and then we have bananas. We have water.
This evacuee is simply happy to have a place to stay.
They're doing the best they can.
Is it wise to stay away from this area right now, you feel?
I think it's wise to be here versus somewhere else and having to be a lot worse.
At the moment, officials say there are no active leaks and no chemicals are being detected in the air. Steve Futterman, CBC News, Los Alamitos, California.
A Calgary woman says she got a $13,000 settlement, but the paralegal she hired kept the money. She says he deposited the cash into his own account, then stopped responding to her messages. Now, her case is exposing major gaps in consumer protection. As Rosa Marcatelli with our Go Public unit found, there are a lot of questions about who, if anyone, oversees paralegals in parts of Canada.
It was a very straightforward case.
Samantha Kirkpatrick hired paralegal John McDonald in 2023 to help sue the contractor she says did a shoddy job building her garage.
I thought this person is legitimate.
Over nearly 2 years, she paid McDonald about $2,900 in fees. Then, last summer, McDonald told her the case had been settled for $13,000, saying he had deposited the money into his account and would transfer it later.
That set off alarm bells for me.
She says she still hasn't received it. McDonald tells CBC News regulators in 2 provinces are investigating complaints against him, so it would be inappropriate for him to comment, he says, adding he's shutting down his paralegal services and working in an unrelated field. The case is exposing gaps in provincial paralegal systems. It's a mishmash of rules across Canada. For example, Alberta does not regulate paralegals, unlike Ontario, where they are highly regulated by the Law Society. University of Windsor assistant law professor Lisa Trabucco is an expert in paralegal regulation.
Really unacceptable that there's no oversight, because it's the individual
client who clearly needs the help.
That lack of oversight is the case in many parts of the country, including Manitoba, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and the Territories. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
Pope Leo has just made a historic apology for the role the Holy See played in legitimizing slavery and for having failed to condemn it for centuries.
Evidenziando quante ferita questa nostra umanità.
In his first encyclical, Leo is calling the Vatican's record a wound in Christian memory. Previous popes have apologized for Christians' involvement in the transatlantic slave trade, but no pope has publicly acknowledged, much less apologized, for the role popes played, including giving European sovereigns explicit authority to control and enslave people. Leo is the first pope born in the United States. His family history includes both slave owners and people who were enslaved. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Martina Fitzgerald. This is CBC News.
Well, good morning, Manitoba, and especially in southern Manitoba, wait for the week ahead. We're going to have a lot of heat. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We're live in sunny downtown Winnipeg on 89.3. This is CBC's Morning Show Information Radio. And coming up this hour on the show, we're going to have a close look at our city. One city, one bylaw. Updates are coming to what can be built and where in the city of Winnipeg. You're being asked to and invited to share your thoughts about this. So stay tuned and we will hear all about what the city is seeking. We're talking about higher density, walkable shops, heights of how things are built. We're going to look at exactly what input they want for this bylaw change. In addition, this hour in the show, speaking of the city, the Exchange District is losing an iconic gallery, but it's going out with a historic $1 million bang. CBC's Jim Agapito finds out why Mayberry is on the move. That's coming up. They're staying in Winnipeg. I should probably just make that clear now, but they are moving neighborhoods. All right, let's get to what's happening in our news center. Otherwise, Heather Wells is here with news headlines.
Good morning. Well, a road blockade set up by the province has been cleared out by First Nations in the Interlake. A bulldozer flattened a pile of rocks set on a road that serves the Lake St. Martin Emergency Outlet Channel. That land's been used by First Nations for generations to harvest, hunt, and fish. The Interlake Reserve's Tribal Council's executive director says the province closed the road without consulting them. And the city of Winnipeg is proposing changes aimed at speeding up housing construction in areas where sewer and water infrastructure needs upgrades. Developers say projects can get stuck because no one wants to be the first to have to pay for improvements that will benefit future developments. We'll hear what a possible solution might be. That's coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather. Thanks. And into this weather forecast now. Abby, what do we know?
Yeah, we're already enjoying that really pleasant spring day today. Mild conditions developing down south and plenty of sunshine and clear conditions in the northern half of the province this morning. Winnipeg, depending on where you are, you're sitting between 15 and 17 degrees under partly sunny skies as we head towards this mostly cloudy day with just some breezy conditions from the north. We'll see a high get close to about 26, 27 as we get into the day. And across the southern region, similar conditions we're seeing between 11 and 14 degrees depending on where you are. And we're still reporting those foggy conditions in the northern part of the province. So overall, Marcy, it's going to be more like a calm and mild one to start the week across the regions. From down south, trek all the way up north, you will enjoy some really calm conditions. And guess what? Churchill just jumped to 1. Woo! So it's 1 degree warmer.
Over 0. It was funny yesterday. We had the windows open, and I think all the dogs in the neighborhood were like, yeah, it's our time.
It's our time.
And then it's so funny when they talk to each other. So it's like, there's all these neighborhood dogs, and like some of them haven't been out all, really outside, or hasn't been warm enough, or maybe they're a small dog or a sensitive breed. I think every dog was out, and my dogs were in the window all day, just like, I'd hear them barking, and I'd be like, you guys, quiet. And they looked at me like, they're barking at us first. and everyone's barking at everybody. And but then that, and I heard people trim the weed trimmers go in. I smelled barbecue.
Oh yeah, barbecues are like in full blast.
Yeah, little kids across the street playing ball, like kicking it, from yard to yard. Just all those lovely sounds.
Just something about the season, Marcy.
I know.
Just something about the season.
Trees are finally popping where they haven't been.
I just can't wait for those trees to really turn green, and then I can start hugging them again because I'm a tree hugger. Just saying.
We should take some photos, actually. I think by the end of the week, we're going to have a significant difference,
True.
right? Yeah. Okay, let's get into the morning commute. We have Sierra Sanders in covering that this morning. Hi.
Hi, Marcy. Yeah, a couple of things to note here. I'll start with what we were talking about before. Pembina and the Perimeter Highway, there's a stopped semi, so the westbound curb lane is blocked due to that stopped semi there. And as well, name of the game this morning is a couple of construction projects that are starting. So I'll riff them off here quickly. We'll start with Portage Avenue going eastbound from Kennedy Street to Carlton Street. The eastbound median lane, the eastbound middle lane are closed for sewer work. So only one eastbound travel lane will be open. So that starts today, May 25th, and runs until June 9th. So about a week or so, or just over a week, maybe about 2 weeks probably there with that closure there. As well, McGregor Street, we're seeing a closure there. So all southbound lanes, northbound median lane of McGregor between Dufferin Avenue to Selkirk Avenue will be closed for street construction until July 27th. So a little bit of an extended closure there on McGregor Street between Dufferin and Selkirk. And finally, Wilkes Avenue, all westbound lanes of Wilkes will be closed for street construction until July 24th, and only eastbound travel will be available and maintained there. So expect delays and use alternate routes through there. So a couple of new construction projects popping up this morning, and that stop semi there we're seeing on the Perimeter Highway there. But if there's something else that you're seeing or something's popped up on your drive, I'd love to hear about it. You can give me a call. That number's 204-788-3093.
Well, by now, millions of Canadians have finished filling out their census forms. Perhaps you're one of them. The deadline was May 12th, but there is actually still time to get this done. Since 1871, the federal government has asked Canadians to share details about our households, including religious beliefs. It's one of the oldest efforts to track religion in the world, in fact. Questions about faith used to be included in the census every 10 years, but starting this year, the government will begin asking every 5 years. John Longhurst is our faith contributor. He recently spoke about the religious questions on the census with Corey Funk.
Good morning.
So why does the government ask people about religion in the first place?
There's a couple reasons. For one, it helps the various levels of government understand the religious landscape. And that way they can plan for services and they can also make any needed policies. But it can also help them put in place protections for religious diversity and maybe even, if they need to, combat hate and discrimination.
So then 1871, that's a long time. So how has Canada's religious landscape changed since then?
Well, quite a bit, actually, and I'm sure everybody knows that. Up to the 1960s, the country was mostly Christian, with small numbers of Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, and Buddhist Canadians. But the new census, 2026 census, lists over 200 religious groups in Canada today. And lots of them are various denominations within the Protestant community. But the list also includes 6 different streams of Buddhism, 15 different kinds of Catholics, 10 different Jewish groups, 8 kinds of Islam, and 5 different forms of indigenous spirituality. And people can also choose from Wiccan, Satanist, Rastafarian, and New Age groups, among others.
So then why did the government decide to ask the question about religion more frequently now?
And that's a question I posed to StatScan. One reason they told me is the growth in minority religions. The number of Canadians who are Muslim, Sikh, and Hindu rose from 6% of the population in 2011 to just over 9% in 2021. The numbers are expected to be much higher this year, and that's because of recent immigration, and the government wants to capture that increase. The other reason is the dramatic rise in the number of Canadians who say they have no religious affiliation, the so-called nones, N-O-N-E-S. They were over 29% of the population in 2011 and over 34% by the 2021 census. Scholars who study religion in Canada think that number could be as high as 40% after this census. So, by asking the question this year, every 5 years instead of every 10 years, the government hopes it can be better able to track those trends and have more up-to-date data about the religious and ethnic diversity of Canada.
So how about the people who study religion in Canada? What do they think about this change to the census?
Yes, I asked Sarah Wilkins-Laflamme that question. Sarah teaches sociology at the University of Waterloo, and she advises StatsCan on the question of religion for the census. She's been pushing for the change for some time, but she thinks it was pressure from others, especially leaders of minority religions, that really was important.
I think what did actually convince them, from my understanding, was there were a number of community groups that also started asking for this data more frequently to get more information on religious diversity within the country.
These leaders want to have better information about the growth of their communities. That was true for Sikander Hashmi. He is the executive director of the Canadian Council for Imams. Sikander has been seeing dramatic growth in the Muslim population in Canada.
Anecdotally, the way that we notice that is that, we see mosques, popping up in places where there were hardly any Muslims in the past. Being able to track that and understand how and where the community is growing, so that we're able to, get the services like all Canadians, but also, especially when it comes to specific services, for example, for newcomers in different languages, services for seniors, for example, who may be moving around or coming to the country to live with their children. So there's a number of scenarios where it would be very important for the government to know what's happening and where.
And, earlier you also mentioned people who have no religion, that's an option. So, is it important to have those statistics as well?
I think so. And that's a question I asked Joel Thiessen, and he teaches sociology at Ambrose University in Calgary, and he studies religion. He thinks that knowing those numbers could be helpful for the federal government as it looks into issues like MAID, for example. How many people are being guided by their religious beliefs when they approach that issue? Well, that's something the government might like to know. But another area that this will also provide valuable information is for things like volunteering and charitable giving. Research shows that the more religious someone is, then the more they give to charity and the more they volunteer. So any decrease in the number of people who say they're religious will have an impact on those two very important things.
And what about criticisms of the fact that the government actually collects data about religion in general on these censuses?
Well, there is one group that is critical, and that group is the Centre for Inquiry, which is one of the leading humanist organizations here in Canada. They aren't happy about how the question is framed. So in the census, people are asked to indicate their religion even if they're not currently practicing. And humanists believe that if someone isn't practicing a religion, well, then they should say they have no religion. But despite that, humanists, scholars, and religious leaders, well, they all hope that the increased data from the census will spark more conversation about what it means to be religious or not to be religious in Canada today.
Well, certainly sparked great conversation here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That is John Longhurst, our freelance faith contributor, in conversation there with CBC's Corey Funk. It is right now 7:22 a.m. and we're about to check sports in a few minutes from now. We can tell you it's a nice Monday morning here. It's already 17 degrees in Winnipeg, and it's partly cloudy, partly sunny downtown. It's mostly cloudy over in Brandon. It's 11, and Thompson's mainly sunny and 9. But we're heading for 27 in Winnipeg and 27 in Brandon, mix of sun and cloud in both places. And then in Thompson, you're heading for a high of 20 degrees. You do, though, have a 60% chance of some showers this morning. Well, we have a bit of local music from Manitoba's Boy Golden this morning. Here's Best of Our Possible Lives.
my life. Don't bring me down to your side. I like to live under clear blue skies. Don't complicate my life. I won't ever tell a lie. And never ever waste your time. I'll be there when the sun done rise. I won't ever tell a lie. We can own our place in the mess of things. Find our way in time. In the best of our possible lives. You're by my side. I don't like to compromise with my wild and lonely life. I like to live with the sun in my eyes. I don't like to compromise. So come on with me where you will, to eat and sing and drink your fill. I will be there in the rolling hills. Come on with me where you will. We can own our place in the mess of things. Find our way in time. In the best of our possible lives. You're by my side in the morning.
Boy Golden and Best of Our Possible Lives on CBC. Hails from Manitoba. I was just checking upcoming dates, but he's busy. He's all over the place. Not back in Winnipeg for a show for a while. Let's get to morning sports now. Scott Regier joins us live. Hello.
Hey, Marcy.
So let's start on the ice. There's an upset brewing in the NHL playoffs.
Is there ever? The President's Trophy winning Colorado Avalanche were the favorites after the regular season to possibly win the Stanley Cup, but they're down 3-0 in the Western Final after losing to Vegas last night. Colorado actually had a lead 3-0 in the first period, but then Vegas came back, largely because of Winnipegger Mark Stone, who had a goal and an assist for Vegas in that victory. So that's what's happening out west. In the Eastern Conference Final, Montreal with a chance to take a 2-1 lead tonight against Carolina on home ice, which is not necessarily a good thing because the Habs, for all their success in this postseason, have a losing record in front of their home fans. And Martin St. Louis, the coach, was asked why.
The fans have poured so much love and so much support, and I feel like we want to do it for them so bad that sometimes we just trying too hard. We looked at our sort a little bit. Does that add like, oh, we really need to win this one. We really need to win this one for them. You know, so I just think we need to take a deep breath and just, you know, try to play the game that's in front of us, not have predetermined because you want it so bad.
All right, so Martin St. Louis and the Habs playing tonight on Hockey Night in Canada at 7 Central Time. And one other hockey note, Jets forward Gabe Vilardi, another strong performance for Canada at the World Hockey Championship in Switzerland. Vilardi with a goal and an assist over Slovakia yesterday. Canada won over Slovakia 5-1 and are top of the table, as they say in European sporting parlance.
And if you want to feel sad as a Jets fan, watch the highlights of Ehlers' beautiful goals this weekend.
Yeah, I know.
But feel good for him.
Yes.
Unless you're cheering for Montreal. There's a lot of layers there. Okay, let's go to football. What stood out for you from the Bombers preseason opener in Saskatchewan this weekend?
Well, I think most Bombers fans were fixated on Taylor Elgersma, the Canadian quarterback that is almost a shoo-in to be Zach Collaros' backup come the regular season. Most of the competition for the backup position, Peyton Thorne, Terry Wilson, have left the team now. So there's just one guy up against Elgersma, and that is Bryce Perkins. So Perkins and Elgersma both played in Saskatoon, where this game was on Saturday against the Riders. But for 3 quarters, it was Elgersma who got the nod. So the statistics are not particularly shiny. He was 6 for 13, 78 yards, and he threw a couple of interceptions, although one of those was not Elgersma's fault. So should we be disappointed? Mike O'Shea, the coach, says no.
He comes off the sideline. He knows exactly what the answers are. He's just out there. He wants to compete at a high level. He wants to make bigger plays. He'll learn from him for sure. He's not happy right now, but I think he should be. It's an exciting time for him. He had a stern look on his face when he rolled in the locker room here. I got to tell him to enjoy himself a little more.
That's good advice from the coach there. By the way, the Bombers lost on a last-minute touchdown catch by Daniel Weeb to the Riders, but it's, of course, just preseason.
I don't often show my age, but I'm sorry. Who's this teenager winning all the F1 races?
Kimi Antonelli, a 19-year-old from Italy, won on a wet, dour day in Montreal yesterday, the Canadian Grand Prix. So 4 races in a row for Antonelli, and it came at his teammate, Mercedes teammate, George Russell's expense.
This win is nice, but not really the way I wanted to win, you know? I feel like it would have been very interesting to see how the fight would have ended up. It was a shame for him to have the issue, but we'll take the win and now we move forward.
So Antonelli at 19, you're wondering how a teenager can win with such regularity. He was discovered as a kart racer at age 7 and had spent a decade racing competitively in a sophisticated junior training academy before he joined the F1 circuit. So a veteran at age 19.
Wow.
And he even got to drink the champagne yesterday at that age.
I can't even imagine driving a car like that. All right, thank you.
You betcha.
That is Scott Regehr with Morning Sports. Your local news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's 17 degrees. Beautiful start to what is going to be a summery week. Today's high 26 with just a mix of sun and clouds, and we continue to heat up as we move through the week. Premiers representing the Western provinces and 3 territories will gather in Kananaskis, Alberta for a 2-day meeting starting today. This as the rift over a proposed pipeline to the BC coast, along with Alberta's plan to hold a referendum on holding a referendum on separation, will likely be key topics of discussion. Premiers Danielle Smith and BC's Premier Eby have found themselves at odds over recent months. Smith voicing her concerns with BC when it comes to the potential pipeline project.
I think it's leadership in British Columbia who continues to try to put barriers in the way of us getting our product to market.
And Eby has criticized Ottawa's Memorandum of Understanding with Alberta.
We cannot have bad behavior decide who gets engaged with by the federal government.
Eby adds he disagrees with the approach Smith has on separatism. He also says the situation will add some awkwardness to the meeting. You can hear more on this coming up on World Report at 8. We are learning more about a man who was flown to hospital in critical condition early yesterday morning after a single vehicle crash in Transcona. It happened around 2 in the morning. Hours later, a car remained on its side with debris littering Redonda Street. Henry DeBeer lives in the area and often walks the sidewalk near that crash scene.
I hope this is the last time I see that. I really do. Because that's not good. You know, if this happens at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there's a lot of people in this area, and somebody else could have got hit. I mean, how is he going to swerve around me if I was walking down that sidewalk?
Police say the 21-year-old driver underwent surgery for serious injuries and remains in hospital. He was the only person in the car. Star says while it doesn't often respond to incidents within the city, they do happen occasionally. A spokesperson says they responded to 6 emergencies within city limits in the last fiscal year. The City of Winnipeg is proposing changes aimed at speeding up housing construction in areas where sewer and water infrastructure need upgrades. Developers say projects can get stuck because no one wants to be the first to pay for improvements that will also benefit future developments. The city wants to create a new cost-sharing system that would require future developers to help pay back companies that funded oversized infrastructure upgrades. Jeff Milnes is the president of Progressive Real Estate Group.
The certainty of payback by a future developer is really unknown. But I think what's most frustrating is the lack of a tracking system that actually can formally document this. It's all just very convoluted.
The proposed changes are scheduled to go before City Council this week. A group of Interlake First Nations has torn down a provincial blockade. A bulldozer clears a pile of rocks that had been blocking an access road. That area had been under construction in recent years to service the Lake St. Martin Emergency Outlet Channel. People from 7 First Nations, including Dauphin River, used the land around the road to harvest and hunt. Chief Lawrence Latander says the province had promised to keep the area accessible, but that didn't happen.
Obviously, they're infringing on our treaty rights. We have every right to hunt here. We've hunted here for many, many years. There are people here that are with us that have actually come hunting here. And today we're here to get back what's ours.
The province says it set up a gate to restrict access as part of the environmental licensing process, but is now reconsidering after receiving feedback. A sick man in Winnipeg hopes to soon write the exam to become a Winnipeg police constable. Jaspal Singh Gill wanted to write the recruitment exam last month, but was told he had to remove his kirpan first. He says devout Sikhs must wear the ceremonial dagger at all times, and being asked to remove it, he says, felt like choosing between his faith and his dream of becoming a police officer. Now the Winnipeg Police Service is developing a new policy.
I believe once they will have a policy regarding kirpan, then I will not going to face these types of experience in future. And I believe many other Sikh applicants in future who wants to join police service will not going to face these types of experience.
Singh Gill hopes the new policy will be more inclusive for himself and future Sikh applicants. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Did you get outside this weekend, especially yesterday?
Oh my goodness, wasn't it glorious?
It was so beautiful. I can't even express how lovely it was. There were lots of moments where I was just sitting in silence, and so was Jean-Paul, and we were just sort of sitting outside.
So beautiful. And birds were singing, people were planting flowers, doing their lawns. And everyone was smiling.
I love when you're doing the lawn and you can hear the birds. I always imagine they're watching like, she's finally taking the dead leaves off. We can get at the worms. Stand by, people. I know, I love it. And then my dogs were just talking to the neighborhood dogs. Everybody is going crazy.
It's great. It's suddenly, it's like life just erupts.
It is. And then it's that reminder of how beautiful the prairies are. The sky was gorgeous too. Yeah. We're going to have a week like that. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Abby's here with the regional details for all of Manitoba today to start with. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Just tracking the numbers right now. Looking at the northern regions, we're seeing temperatures from 1 in Churchill, and then we see 10 around the Park Flin-Flon. And then if you look at the southern parts of the province, we're seeing temperatures picking up from those 10 degrees. The northern regions are picking at for now from 10 to 17 degrees. Churchill, for example, we still have misty conditions there. 1 degree at this time, mild northern winds. We'll see a slim chance of showers in the forecast, only warming up to 4 degrees later. Tudula Lake also misty there, 2 degrees there at this time. A good chance of showers. You get to 9 degrees. Gillam seeing light rain and foggy conditions in the mix, and this would continue on and off for most of the day. You only warm up to 11 degrees. You have 3 at this time. Linlick is at 5 and sunny. Thompson is at 9 and sunny. And then we go to the Power Flin-Flon. We're seeing 8 and 10 degrees there. Then we come to the southern part of the province, talking about Modern Winkler, Morris. We're seeing temperatures around 13 degrees at this time. A mix of sun and clouds, mild northwest winds. Highs would get close to 28, 29 for that region. Brandon all the way towards Nipper, we're seeing 10 degrees there. Mostly cloudy skies now. It's mild out there. You warm up to 27. Dauphin, you're sitting at 13. You get to 24. While in the Interlake region, we're seeing temperatures around 17 near the Gimli area. A mix of sun and clouds also there with mild northwest winds. You get to 25. There's still a slim chance of morning showers in the forecast. Then we come to the Red River Valley region, Marcy, where we have more like a mix of sun and clouds in the mix. Currently, we're seeing 17 degrees in some parts of the city. We're seeing 16 in some part of the city. Still trying to make the sunshine really take over for most of the day. Windy conditions will shift to the northwest later. High for this time of the year, is 21, but for today, Marcy, we would get close to 27 if the sun burns longer into the evening period before it sets. And tomorrow we will touch 27 for sure. But for today, we're looking at that 26. Right now, it is 17 degrees in the city.
All right, 7:38. Mark it down. Everybody's over zero in the whole province.
Yep, over zero.
Someone's going to call me right away and say, no, not in my community. The list we have at least shows that. Okay, let's get into what's happening on the commute with Sierra.
Hi, Marcy. Been pretty quiet on the commuter line so far this morning. Haven't heard too much from the folks out on the road, but a little bit of an update. That stalled semi that we were seeing on the perimeter highway at Pembina there, that has been cleared from the roadway. So all westbound lanes, I should say, are open there. So that semi has been cleared. So you should be good to go. Traffic should be moving smoothly through there. Just want to note a larger closure here on eastbound Portage Avenue. So from Kennedy Street to Carleton Street, heading eastbound on Portage, the eastbound median lane, eastbound middle lane is closed for sewer work, so only one eastbound lane will be open during this time of construction. And that construction runs from today, May 25th, until June 9th, which is just about 2 weeks there on that project. So you want to expect some delays moving through there on eastbound Portage Avenue. As I said, quiet on the commuter line, but if there is something that gets in your way, I'd love to hear about it. And that number to call is 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Sierra. Let's get to something that is changing in one of the neighborhoods in Winnipeg that has been there for a long time. After more than 2 decades in Winnipeg's Exchange District, Mayberry is on the move. And the Mayberry Fine Art Gallery will say goodbye to the neighborhood in historic fashion. They are planning to host the biggest art auction in Winnipeg's history, featuring some of Canada's most celebrated artists before they move to Wall Street. CBC's Jim Agapito visited the Exchange location and met with gallery director Sean Mayberry to find out what this sale and move means for the city's art scene.
So we have 89 paintings available in our May auction, which closes on May 28th. Many of the paintings are by major names in Canadian art. May is auction season in Canada, and so we've brought together the best that we can pull together for this event. It's the largest valued art collection that's been offered for sale in Winnipeg, with a pre-sale estimate of $1.1 million to $1.5 million. Those are what we expect the works to fetch as of the closing time.
Okay, Sean, this is probably the most expensive piece. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this is Lauren Harris, and Lauren Harris is one of Canada's most famous and important artists. This painting is it's an untitled painting, but the region is painted in Algoma. The group of 7 painted smaller paintings like this here. We call them oil sketches. They painted them outdoors. And this painting is done after 1918, when they outfitted a train car and would haul it into the sort of real rugged regions, isolated regions in around Algoma and then later Lake Superior. It's a very unique color palette, the sort of autumn colors of the trees changing color, likely October, end of September, October, but it still has this beautiful warmth of the sort of late summer blue hue in the composition. It's really an extraordinary work. We've got it estimated at $125,000 to $175,000, and there are many examples of paintings of similar sort of period and quality to this that sort of sell in those price ranges. I think when it comes to collecting, you always want to, first of all, you want to always buy what you love. We've never sold a painting to anyone that didn't love it, regardless of price. You want to spend time to educate yourself about the things that you are interested in collecting. So coming to an exhibition like this gives you a wonderful opportunity to see a wide array of artists whose work is excellent quality, but again covers a whole variety of sort of price points. We vet all the pieces. We look for artists that we feel were professionals in their field, but the quality of the art is usually all fairly similar. So you'll find a whole variety of price points. I find that art's a bit, valuing art's a bit like valuing a house at times. You look for comparables, you look for the neighborhood, you look for the city that it's in. We have 2 paintings by Maud Lewis, and Maud Lewis almost needs no introduction. She's Canada's most prominent folk artist, You know, an artist who was entirely self-trained. She produced a body of work that continues to inspire generations of new collectors. Maud's work is sort of deceptively simple. They're these bright, colorful, cheerful paintings that often depict her rural surroundings in Nova Scotia. The bottom painting here is called The Deer at Sunset. The top painting is image with horse and sleds, moving through winter. We've got some skaters on the ice in the background and a sled that's going over a bridge.
How emotional does it feel leaving the Exchange District after 20 years?
I remember it was a packed house. My hair was black then. And we had, a full house in January. And so when people come in to look at art, art can sometimes be very intimidating. And as a commercial gallery, our objective is to sell and promote art, to make it a comfortable experience for people, to help them and encourage them on that journey. And often people come in and they lack the ability to talk about the art or understand, what to think about it. And so the building actually was like a great icebreaker, because you come into the building and, oh, I love the architecture, or I love the building, or who owned this, or when was this built? So we immediately always had a way to, get to establish a rapport with someone to make them sort of feel more comfortable in the space. So the new space gives a large percentage of the gallery to promotion of contemporary artists, and that's a big priority for us. You don't have secondary market art to sell if you don't sell it in the primary market, and so you always have to be cultivating that sort of next crop of artists and group of artists, and give collectors an opportunity to see new talent in what people are producing today.
So that was obviously the Mayberry Fine Art Center closing in Winnipeg, or I shouldn't say just closing, because it's scaring everybody, I think, moving in Winnipeg. CBC's Jim Agapito out in conversation with Sean Mayberry about it there. So if you're wondering, those Maud Lewis paintings that you might have seen, beautiful, right? They go between $12,000 and $30,000. Also, big thanks, besides Jim, for visiting the gallery in the Exchange one last time for our story. Thanks to Travis Colby, who worked on that item. The new location is going to be on Wall Street. They will open Mayberry there in July. And in the meantime, if you want to read more about what they're saying is going to be the largest art auction in Winnipeg's history, you can go to mayberryfineart.com.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
It looks like this is maybe a one-day blip when farmers across the province need hot and dry.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take.
In general, it's harder to find a job even if you're educated.
From 12:15 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
When I was 5 or 6, my parents gave me seeds and helped me plant them. That was probably close to 70 years ago. And here I am still gardening.
It just brings everyone together. Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you weekdays on CBC.
Well, everyone's talking about gardening this Monday morning, I think, because finally we got kind of Mother Nature giving us the sign, go for it, Winnipeg. Usually in this province, people who have lived here for a long time say it's never really clear. We're never really in the clear till June 1st. And that certainly was the case this year, right? So here we are in the last week of May, finally with some steady warm weather. In fact, by the end of the week, we could be seeing highs of 30. Winnipeg, Thursday to Sunday, the projected high is between 33 and 35. Brandon, Wednesday to Sunday, 31 to 34. And even up north in Thompson, Saturday and Sunday, looking at 31 and 32, which is very warm for up there. So we'll see if all of this holds in our forecast. Coming up on the program after 8 o'clock, Manitobans are more likely to suffer with diabetes and related conditions than any other province. You may know that stat. Coming up, we're going to talk about a professor who's studying how to help type 2 diabetics go into remission and live free of medication. And so stay tuned. We'll hear all about that and what he's looking at. That's coming up after 8. Right now, though, zoning bylaws might sound like something best left to city planners and lawyers, but they do affect all of us each and every day. Zoning shape how shapes how buildings look, how tall they are, where shops and services go, how streets feel. Currently, Winnipeg has 2 zoning bylaws. So there's one for downtown and there's one for the rest of the city. The last time they were fully updated was about 20 years ago. Now Winnipeggers are invited to share opinions on what should change in upcoming revisions. Hazel Boris is Director of Planning, Property and Development with the City of Winnipeg and live with us in our CBC studio this morning. Good morning.
Hello, Marcy. Great to be here.
Nice to have you in studio. So when people hear that there's zoning bylaws for downtown and the rest of the city, why are there 2 sets?
Well, the one for downtown is very key to the most intense urban environment that we have in our region. So those rules are very different than the rest of the city and have a great mix of compatible uses that it enables.
And in the rest of the city, when we look at the bylaws, often people will say that the in for the average resident is when they see a sign goes up that says like there's an appeal or a zoning bylaw, you need to have it approved. Somebody's, applied to have a change in zoning. So will what we're giving input here to, will that change some of those signs that go up, or will there always be, those warnings that come?
There will always be those warnings that come whenever someone doesn't want to comply with one or more aspect of the adopted zoning bylaw. So if someone says, hey, I would like to build a little taller or a different use than this lot is currently zoned for, they would still need to go through that rezoning or variance or conditional use process, and that sign would still go up so their neighbors would know.
What kinds of things? I mentioned some examples, but what kinds of things are you looking for input on in this?
We're mainly asking Winnipeggers 2 things right now. What's working well about the zoning bylaw, so what should we make sure still remains in the next version of it, and what's really not working so well and how can we change it? So at the moment, this is a 2-year process and we are in the listening phase. So nothing has been drafted yet. We just want to hear from folks to understand their perspectives and viewpoints, and especially when people have been using the zoning bylaw or feel like they've been heavily impacted by their neighbors using it.
Is this separate from the development questions? Because I know that the city is, to get some of the funding from the feds, the mayor was here and said we have to sort of put up more density here if we're going to get this funding to build more. Is what we're giving input on here outside of that?
It's very interrelated for sure. And in fact, that Housing Accelerator Fund federal grant that the city of Winnipeg received is what is funding this zoning bylaw rewrite. It's still best practice to update it, certainly at least every 20 years. And it's had little patches in that time. So yes, this is part of that to say, hey, in addition to those federal grants that folks are getting to build some deeply affordable housing, how can we change the rules to make more naturally affordable housing?
And does it replace things like neighborhood plans? Because I know every time we talk about like Osborne Village, there's rules about how high things can be built. Some neighborhoods have character and history sort of written into their neighborhood plans. How does zoning pair with those kinds of things?
In the past, the zoning didn't always pair really well with them. So during this process, we'll be looking very carefully at those neighborhood plans. They will, for the most part, still stay in place, but we'll make sure that the zoning categories that govern that neighborhood reflect as much as possible what their plans say.
So you said you're in the gathering and the listening phase rather right now. What happens in these 2 years then? What are what's going to happen after the listening phase, and where are you going to be listening?
That's a great question. Well, the last 2 in-person listening sessions at the moment are tonight and tomorrow night. So tonight's open house is at St. Vital Mall from 4 to 7 p.m. People can drop in anytime. They certainly don't have to stay that full time. There's boards up around the room and lots of city planners there to answer their questions and to take their comments. And then tomorrow night, the same thing, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Outlet Collection. And then on Wednesday night, there's a virtual event that people can join us online if they don't want to come in person. And there's also an online survey. All of the information for that or to take the survey is at winnipeg.ca/zoning rewrite.
Got it. What do you hear when you go to these open houses? I'm guessing a lot about density.
A lot about density, a lot about how we can connect our current natural areas, how can we protect our rivers and creeks, all those sorts of things. We also hear a lot about how we can ensure complete communities happen as a matter of right. So people can walk to at least some of their daily needs, and people have more choices about how they move through the city, whether it's walking, busing, biking, or driving.
Some listeners might be wondering whether or not zoning changes people's property or can impact people's property taxes or their property values.
Our property taxes are based on what's on the ground today, not what could be built at the maximum density for your zoning. So it shouldn't appreciably affect your property tax until at such time as you decide, I'm going to upgrade this property and build something that's more valuable.
There's a story in the news this morning about the city of Winnipeg proposing changes aimed at speeding up housing construction in areas where sewer and water infrastructure needs upgrades. So if you're speeding up housing construction development, but then you're looking at zoning, is this tied into what we're gathering information for?
Those are two different tools. What you're talking about is the development agreement parameters for when someone is going forward with a development that needs some infrastructure investment, how those costs are equitably shared. So that's very closely connected, but a different document than the zoning bylaw.
Got it. What else are you hearing from people at these events? Is there is it really neighborhood dependent where you've held them? Like, is it widely different, or are there you mentioned some of the common things?
We're hearing a lot of those common things across the neighborhoods, but certainly it is neighborhood dependent. The neighborhoods that have received a lot of infill in the last several years have a little different and more precise opinions about things that are very helpful for us to hear at this point than the older neighborhoods or the brand new neighborhoods that are predominantly all new development.
How structured will the new zoning bylaws be? I know years ago I was doing something in Calgary, had like really specific things that we have never had in Winnipeg. So for example, it wasn't just about heights of things, because often people will say, I live in a bungalow, something big was built next door, my yard is shaded, it's a problem. Or, it just changes the character of the neighborhood. Some people love it, some people don't like it. Neighborhood specific, obviously. But in Calgary, for example, they had you can't enter, I think one of their bylaws was you can't enter a garage off of sort of the front of the street because the density was becoming so great that it was just off the back lanes. Will you be looking for input that is that specific about if the density is going to improve, what will allow it to work in our neighborhood, for example?
You raised such a good question, Marcy, and that's kind of one of the disconnects right now between our adopted policies like Our Winnipeg and Complete Communities and our existing bylaw. So in our policies right now, it already says, hey, if most of the buildings on your block are alley loaded and people come into the garages from the alley, then you can't add a new front-facing garage there. But if you're on a street that has all front-facing garages, you may have a front-facing garage. So far, we haven't gotten direction to change that, but what we do have direction for is to implement those council-adopted policies that have been in place for a number of years, but this 20-year-old zoning bylaw doesn't really reflect those contemporary policies.
Thank you for being here. I'm sure you're getting an earful from folks, but that's what you want. You need to hear that input. So we appreciate you being in studio, Hazel. I'll mention the website again.
Thank you so much, Marcy.
That's Hazel Boris with us, Director of Planning, Property and Development with the City of Winnipeg. If you want information, engage.winnipeg.ca. Remember that on Wednesday, they're going to have an online session for this. There's also upcoming sessions, and you can read more about them coming up. One tonight and then one tomorrow at the Outlet Mall, around the Outlet Mall area. All right, let's get to what's happening in the news headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, we are learning more about a man who was flown to hospital in critical condition early yesterday morning after a single vehicle crash in Transcona around Redonda. Police say the 21-year-old driver underwent surgery for serious injuries and remains in hospital. He was the only person in the car. A road blockade set up by the province has been cleared out by First Nations in Manitoba's Interlake. A bulldozer flattened a pile of rocks set on the road that serves the Lake St. Martin Emergency Outlet Channel. That land has been used by First Nations for generations to harvest, hunt, and fish. The Interlake Reserves Tribal Council represents communities in the area, and the executive director there says the province closed the road without consulting them. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
Thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
Still ahead after 8 as well, we're going to talk to a Manitoba professor who's looking to find a way to help type 2 diabetics go into remission. If it works, it could have huge benefits in Manitoba. We're going to talk to him after 8 about what he is studying. It is 7 degrees in the city. It's mostly sunny right now downtown. Our high today is going to be 26 degrees. In traffic, please call us if you see any major problems at 788-3093. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Coming up next on CBC's Information Radio, we are going to dip into national and international news on World Report. Stay here on CBC.
On cue. Robbie Hoffman only had one question at the top of her mind when she started doing stand-up comedy. Where can I go to bomb? She'll tell you how failure ultimately helped her succeed and why playing a character based on her own life in the TV show Hacks was horrifying.
I should be both your assistants.
Great, you're hired.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
SSRI antidepressants have been around for 50 years, but their effectiveness and how often they're prescribed have come under fire. What do we know about their efficacy, and how should we be looking at other options for depression? It's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Martina Fitzgerald. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith will be hosting her Western counterparts today and tomorrow in Kananaskis. And this time, the annual conference is being watched even more closely than usual. This is supposed to be a chance for Western leaders to agree to common priorities before all of the country's premiers gather later this summer. But lately, there's been a lot of disagreement among this group. Let's go to Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. Janice, Danielle Smith is chairing these talks. What has she been saying?
Well, far from avoiding the awkwardness of the national unity crisis, she may have just kicked off by indulging the demands of the minority of separatists in her province for a referendum on Alberta's future. On Friday, Danielle Smith seemed to lean into it. In the wake of a court decision that found separatist organizers had breached the duty to consult with Indigenous peoples, Alberta's premier suggested a solution to this legal hurdle might be reopening the 1982 Constitution Act to revisit its section on Indigenous rights.
My reading of it is that it was never intended to continue being open-ended and redefined by the court to create new and increasing rights over and over again. And if there's an appetite among the other premiers to talk about defining that even further through some kind of constitutional amendment, then, I'm open to having that conversation.
Other premiers grappling with reconciliation and treaty rights in their jurisdictions haven't suggested the path forward is to remove or diminish these rights. So it's unclear that any premier except her wants to have this conversation, even in British Columbia. On the day Smith announced her referendum question, Premier David Eby positioned himself in front of a giant Canadian flag to once again condemn what he's called the bad behavior of Alberta's premier.
I fundamentally disagree with her approach to Canadian unity. And that is just something that we're going to have to agree to disagree on and move past.
Setting aside this referendum for a moment, Janice, what else might come up at this meeting?
Well, in past years, Western premiers have used these talks to push for a common front on issues like the need for the federal government to invest in trade infrastructure. But at the moment, premiers appear to be competing with each other for federal attention to secure major project designations and bespoke deals for their priority industries. So we'll see whether putting them in a room together can recreate more of a Team Canada vibe.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
That is Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Today, an independent international tribunal begins its investigation into residential schools in Canada. The Permanent People's Tribunal has been independently investigating human rights abuses around the world since 1979. This week, it will determine whether Canada committed crimes against humanity, including genocide. CBC Indigenous reporter Joy Spearchief-Morris has that story.
As Indigenous people, we are so tired. And tired because it's a tsunami of grief that are hitting us every day.
Nakasset has been waiting for this day for over 2 years. As executive director of the Native Women's Shelter of Montreal, she requested the Permanent People's Tribunal come to Canada. It's an independent international court of opinion that investigates human rights abuses across the globe. Nakasset said she hopes the tribunal will not only evaluate the level of crimes committed, but also educate Canadians about residential schools, where for over 150 years, Indigenous children experienced physical, cultural, and sexual abuse.
You know, we have to push the needle. So it might be large, it might be a little bit, but it's something.
In 2021, Tecumlip's Tayshiaquamic announced over 200 suspected unmarked graves on the grounds of the former Kamloops residential school. The National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation estimates over 4,000 Indigenous children across Canada died while attending residential school. This week, a panel of 7 judges will hear from survivors. There will also be testimony from experts on residential schools and unmarked graves. Krista Bigcanoe is the lead prosecutor for the tribunal.
And not just in my mind, but in my legal opinion, there is more than enough evidence to demonstrate and meet the legal tests for everything that's being alleged.
The tribunal will give an interim ruling on Friday. A full decision is not expected until September. Joy Spearchief-Morris, CBC News, Ottawa.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says a deal to end the war in Iran could come today. Rubio is in India as negotiations continue between Washington and Tehran.
We have what I think is a pretty solid thing on the table in terms of their ability to open up the straits, get the straits open, enter into a very real, significant, time-limited negotiation on the nuclear matters. And hopefully we can pull it off. It has a lot of support in the Gulf. It has a lot of support globally. Every country that we've walked through it understands it's not just very reasonable, but it's the right thing for the world to get done.
On social media, U.S. President Donald Trump says negotiations are going well and that he's asked Gulf countries and other nations to sign on to the Abraham Accords as part of U.S. efforts to reach a deal with Iran. Some are already party to the agreements which normalize relations with Israel. Despite Trump's optimism, Iran's foreign ministry says recent progress in negotiations does not mean they're close to signing an agreement. The United Kingdom is accusing Russia of jamming the signal on one of its planes. British Defense Secretary John Healey was on his way back from Estonia when the GPS stopped functioning. Anna Cunningham has details from London.
The GPS tracking system on the British military RAF jet was disabled. The internet was also inaccessible, leaving the 3-hour flight in the dark. British military pilots were forced to use a different navigation system. On board, the British Defence Secretary John Healey, political and military advisors, photographers and a journalist from the Times of London. This incident last Thursday happened days after 2 Russian jets intercepted an RAF spy plane above the Black Sea. The British Ministry of Defence said the Russian planes had repeatedly and dangerously flown so close it triggered the jet's emergency systems. Baltic countries have frequently accused Russia of aviation signal jamming. Last September, a plane carrying the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen was forced to use paper maps after its systems were jammed. Landing in Belgium, authorities there laid the blame at Russia. This latest incident has been described as reckless Russian interference by a British military source, but it's unclear if the British Defence Secretary was deliberately targeted. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
About 50,000 people in Orange County, California, are still out of their homes bracing for a possible explosion. A tank full of toxic chemicals at an aerospace center has been heating up for days, and the pressure has been building. But interim fire chief TJ McGovern says there is one positive sign.
We noticed a potential crack towards the top, and what that showed us was that it could not be as high pressure as we thought because of the crack. It was a very high-risk, low-frequency operation, but we got positive info.
Shelters and hotels in Orange County are packed with people who have been evacuated from their homes. The potential blast radius is more than 23 square kilometers. Pope Leo is making a historic apology for the Catholic Church's role in slavery. It's the first time a pope is publicly acknowledging and apologizing for the role the Holy See played in the transatlantic slave trade. Leo is the first ever U.S.-born pope, and his comments are seen as a significant acknowledgement. Megan Williams has more.
Pope Leo's historic apology came as part of his first encyclical or pastoral letter focused on artificial intelligence as one of the defining power struggles of this era. High on the Pope's list of concerns about AI is how it affects workers. He links AI to new forms of exploitation, from data control to the workers and children extracting minerals used in digital technology, and warns it can constitute a kind of modern-day slavery.
Artificial intelligence needs to be disarmed. The word is strong, I know, but deliberately chosen because this moment needs words capable of attracting attention, awakening consciences, and indicating paths forward for humanity.
Previous popes have apologized for Christians' involvement in the transatlantic slave trade, but no pope has publicly acknowledged, much less apologized for, the role popes played, including giving European sovereigns explicit authority to control and enslave people. The Pope, too, warns that deadly decisions must not be handed over to AI systems, sharply rejecting the idea that technology can make war morally acceptable. Megan Williams, CBC News, Toronto.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Martina Fitzgerald. This is CBC News.
Well, who's not enjoying the sun? I think the whole province is in a better mood right now. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. Maybe you're having a coffee outside while you're listening to CBC. You are on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. Abby with the hot forecast in just a moment coming up. This half hour on the program, we're going to talk to a Manitoba professor who is looking to find a way to help type 2 diabetics go into remission. Now, if this works, it could have huge benefits in Manitoba. We'll talk about exactly what he's researching against some of the medications that you might have heard of that are also finding a way to help folks with diabetes right now as well. So stay tuned. We'll have that for you. Also, we'll dip into what they're going to be asking on the call-in for Radio Noon this afternoon between 12:30 and 1. And we'll remind you about our live show coming up this week in Niverville on Thursday. Stay with us. You're on 89.3. Before we get into the weather and traffic situation, let's get into the Monday morning headlines. Here's Heather Wells. And I believe, Heather, there you go.
There we are.
Can hear you.
I'm having great difficulty with my mic button. I'm not sure why. But I can tell you, the city of Winnipeg is proposing changes aimed at speeding up housing construction in areas where sewer and water infrastructure need upgrades. Developers say projects can get stuck because no one wants to be the first to have to pay for improvements that will benefit future developments. And we are learning more about a man who was flown to hospital in critical condition early yesterday morning after a single vehicle crash in Transcona. Police say the 21-year-old driver underwent surgery for serious injuries and remains in hospital. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
And the forecast now, Abby.
Well, Marcy, I'm just looking forward to the warm spring afternoon we're going to be getting in the southern part of the province and across border, actually. Looking at conditions in Winnipeg and nearby areas in the Red River Valley region at this time, starting with a mix of sun and clouds already. We're going to see temperatures hover between 17 and 19 degrees, depending on where you are. Some windy conditions will make our temperatures just warm up to about 26 later today, well above the seasonal normal of 21. And across the southern regions, we're starting the day already warm. We're seeing 14 degrees in some areas, and we're seeing 19 degrees around the Gimli area also this morning. Daytime highs, we're talking about climbing to 24 in Dauphin area, 25 in the Gimli area, 27 in the Brandon area. Across the board, Modern Winkler should see 28 degrees or even close to 29. While up north, we're seeing milder conditions. We're targeting highs of maybe 23 degrees in some parts of the northern regions today. But in summary, it's going to be more like a beautiful, warm day. Just a few scattered showers I'm tracking in the northern part of the province around Gillam this morning with those foggy conditions. But other than that, we will see 20s across board today. Winnipeg right now, 17, 18, 19. We get to 26 later.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
We do have a couple things in traffic to mention. Sierra Sanders is in with that.
Hi, Marcy. It's been pretty lonely on the commuter line this morning. Haven't received any calls, but figured I would let you folks know about some construction closures that are starting today and will run for a little bit of time. First, we have Portage Avenue heading eastbound between Kennedy Street and Carlton Street. So the eastbound median lane and the eastbound middle lane are closed for sewer work. So only one eastbound travel lane is open there. So you want to expect some delays there, or maybe find a different way around that area there, and that's expected to go until June 9th. So about 2 weeks that work is expected to last. As well, we're seeing a closure on McGregor Street between Dufferin Avenue and Selkirk Avenue. So all southbound lanes and the northbound median lane of McGregor between Dufferin and Selkirk will be closed for street construction until July 27th. So that's starting today and running until July 27th. As well, we're seeing another closure on Wilkes Avenue. So all westbound lanes of Wilkes there will be closed for street construction until July 24th. So only eastbound travel will be maintained there. So you will only be able to travel eastbound on Wilkes. So expect delays there and use alternate routes if you can. Still a little bit of time left in the show though. So if there is something that pops up here in these next 20 or so minutes, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, 30% of Manitobans have diabetes and related conditions like kidney disease. That number is disproportionately higher than any other Canadian province. You've probably heard it before. That number is also growing. There is promising news, though, at least those for living with type 2 diabetes. A Manitoba professor is researching a way to help people not just manage the condition, but potentially put it into remission long term. Dylan McKay is an assistant professor in the Department of Food and Human Nutritional Sciences at the University of Manitoba, and he joins us now live. Good morning.
Good morning.
So before we get into this, why did you want to help people with type 2 diabetes? Where'd your interest come from?
I'd say it's probably I live with diabetes myself, type 1. And so that sort of shaped the type of research I do. So I'm really interested in the connection of diet and lifestyle and health. And the somewhat overlapping shared experience between people with type 1 and type 2 has certainly made me interested in type 2 diabetes research.
There's sure a lot of talk about everything right now with all these drugs out there, some of them by generic names, some of them obviously known by other names. A lot of it has seemed to be pretty promising. We've had medical columns on it. Did that also prompt your desire to look at the research?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's been sort of game-changing in terms of new medications for type 2 diabetes and chronic kidney disease, as you mentioned. These incretin-class medications, sometimes semaglutide or Ozempic, tirzepatide, and Mounjaro, these medications you see lots of ads for, have been really transformational for the treatment of type 2 diabetes. And so as more people are taking them, it opens up some research questions on, do those individuals need to take them forever, or what happens if they can't continue to take them? And that's sort of where this research project's come from.
Now, you're looking at this and doing an upcoming study program, and you've partnered with the Wellness Institute, I understand, over at Seven Oaks Hospital. What exactly will be happening?
Well, we're going to see, there's this idea of type 2 diabetes remission, which is something where some people, not all, people with type 2 diabetes can have the ability to, get their blood sugars back to a normal range without taking any diabetes medications, and that's called remission. But that's typically associated with, quite significant weight loss or a large increase in exercise, big lifestyle changes. And with these new medications that seem to be assisting people in losing significant amounts of weight, we were wondering if these medications can be used to achieve this weight loss that's associated with the remission. And then what happens if we take individuals off the medications and support them as best we can? Can that remission be maintained, and can that be maintained without the medications? And so we're partnering with an existing program at Seven Oaks. We're tweaking it slightly, and then we're kind of doing this proof of principle trial to see if we can use these medications and then maybe take them away or reduce the dose and see how that impacts those individuals.
It's interesting because I'm also curious, once we look in the future, because it's still relatively new, having the numbers that we have in the populations on these types of medications. I'm really interested in whether or not, what is going to be seen as the greater benefit, or what is the greater risk? Like, if you do stay on medication your whole life, but it does keep you in remission, is that better than sort of living with diabetes but not being on the medication? Because and that might be something that could follow your study. What do you think the implications of your research could be?
Yeah, certainly. So that's the kind of questions we're asking too. We're going to be looking at, obviously some of the outcomes in the individuals, blood sugar values and things like that, but we're going to be talking to the people who are participating as well. And really, this is an area where, clinicians are interested, like how long do we leave people on these medications, or what happens if someone doesn't take these medications or wants to stop them? And what is healthier? Certainly, we know from the trials that have had these medications approved that these long-term taking of these medications are healthy, and they improve the populations that are on them, and that's why they're approved for type 2 diabetes. But not everybody wants to stay on them forever or have a medication they are taking. If they feel very healthy, they may want to try removing them. So that's exactly the kind of questions we want to look at.
How many people will you be working with, and do you already have your participants, in place? Because I understand you're going to be really doing this in earnest. Is it starting this fall?
Yeah, the project will be starting this fall, and we'll be recruiting through the program in the area of Seven Oaks Hospital. There's lots of contracts and things that need to get set up for this type of a project. So we're really hoping for a late fall start, and we'll be looking for about 60 individuals who have type 2 diabetes and are interested in seeing if they can put their condition in remission. And it would be likely individuals who are not already taking these types of medications.
Got it. And will you be using all the medications in this study, or is that still to be determined?
At the moment, we're planning on just using one medication in the study. We are looking into maybe seeing if we can expand it to another one, but that's also sort of like in the planning stages.
Okay, and which one is the one that you're planning around so far?
Okay, so yeah, we'll be looking at the one called tirzepatide. It's also the brand name is Mounjaro, I believe.
Got it. How long will the study actually take? Like, how long will people be observed?
Start to finish, from enrollment to finishing the study, would be about 56 weeks. So, just short of, or just about a year. It would involve joining a rather intensive lifestyle program that utilizes these medications, looking at sort of a personalized weight goal and lifestyle intervention. And then in individuals who are able to reduce their blood glucose values to a range where they should be in remission, half of the individuals would come off the medication. They would be randomly selected. And then we follow the individuals who stay on and follow the individuals who come off, and we look at how that impacts their remission status and things like that.
Really interesting. Where can people find out more information if they might be interested in reading, or maybe they're eligible to take part and see if they could be involved?
There is a little write-up, I think, on UM Today around the grant we received for this. And then in the fall, when we have all the approvals and when we're starting, we'll definitely put out some more information around participating.
Well, thank you very much for being with us live this morning via Zoom. And I have to say, it's glorious to see you doing this interview outside. If people are watching, my guest has been outside with a headset on, and it's the time of year where we start to see that with all the guests. And it's making me happy because we haven't really had that so far.
Thanks for the opportunity. Just like you said, I was listening while having my coffee outside, so I just decided to keep going.
Yeah, it's beautiful. All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Dylan McKay with us live, assistant professor in the Department of Food and Human Nutritional Sciences at the University of Manitoba, hoping to start his type 2 diabetes remission program in the fall.
The puck may have dropped on the playoffs, but the news doesn't stop for hockey. I'm Brittany Greenslade, host of CBC Winnipeg News at 6. To get your local news, stream CBC Winnipeg News at 6, 24/7 on CBC Gem, the CBC News app, and selected streaming platforms. CBC Winnipeg News at 6, your local news on your favorite streaming device.
Time right now is 8:23 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on that app and on YouTube. And next on the show, how do you get 150 choristers to sing literally from the same page? Well, that was a challenge for Lee Carter, the musical director of a group in Ottawa's region that has come together as a mega choir. He picked the music more than a year ago, all on the theme of peace. The world events have made his choices incredibly, uncannily timely. The CBC's Hallie Cottenham dropped by a rehearsal.
So tonight is a rehearsal of the music for our concert, Better is Peace. We have here tonight Nepean High School Choir, Nepean Choir, and the Castanchel Choir.
You talk about a shared purpose. What is the purpose?
So really of coming together and making beautiful music that inspires the singers and our audience.
You have chosen 3 pieces.
The main work on the program is Carl Jenkins' Armed Man Mass for Peace. And this was written at the turn of the century to reflect on what had been the planet's most violent century ever, and to hope for a more peaceful future for our planet. And I first heard this music 25 years ago when I was a teenager in university and fell in love, and I've used it in teaching over the years. And so this was the piece that we thought would be a great one to start with. And then I wanted a few more pieces on the program. I wanted a new major work, and one that was secular. Because the Mass was, sacred. And so went looking and found Caroline Shaw's The Listeners. Which is sort of the idea is around the golden records on the Voyager spacecraft, and this ridiculous idea that the aliens are going to have a hi-fi on their spaceship to hear about what it's like on Earth.
So NASA sent up an LP into outer space?
2 of them, yeah. And on there's greetings from all these different languages, and a recording of that is included in the performance.
Hola y saludos a todos. Chân thành gửi tới các bạn lời chào thân hữu.
Konnichiwa, o genki desu ka? And a third piece that you've chosen.
Yes, Oma Bindik by Andrew Balfour. It directs you to the 4 directions in earth and sky and water, but it brings it back to here inside. Oma Bindig translates as here inside.
What do you see happening in front of you?
Oh, that's a really tough question. I see people falling in love with music that maybe they wouldn't have before. People looking at things in a different way. I even see people crying in rehearsal because of the emotional content of these works. That this concert is spectacularly timed, and quite accidentally, as you say. I started planning this in December of 24, and things have really progressed in that time on planet Earth, and
off planet Earth too, and Artemis too.
That's it. And so our eyes were turned upward, and we're thinking about war, and we're thinking about the upset on our planet. And we're really hoping for a brighter, better future where we come together and share our diversity and thrive because of it.
Hi, I'm Abby McInerney. I am 16 and I go to Nepean High School.
I'm Sam Khalil. I'm 17 and I go to Nepean High School.
I have been singing since the 9th grade, so for just over 2.5 years, I think.
About a year now.
Hi, I'm Colin Borgel. I've been singing for 10 years in the Nepean Choir.
Hi, I'm Tracy Carefoot, and I've been singing with Cast and Shell Choir for around 10 years as well.
The part that hits me the most is probably the start of a piece called Benedictus. You go into this gorgeous piece. It's calm, it's slow. When I listen to it, it just feels like it's a breath of fresh air. It just feels like it's just so nice. It kind of just feels like the sun after it's had a big thunderstorm. It just feels so beautiful and warm. And the rest of the piece, it's about war, so it's pretty sad and gloomy at times and intense and heavy. And then it just gets to this kind of light, breezy piece, and it's just such a relief. It just feels like all the weight's been lifted off your shoulders. It's the best.
I really like the titular movement, Better is Peace, from the armed man, Carl Jenkins. I think it's a very real message that is relevant to today's world. We have many countries ravaged by war, and I think that the occasional reminder that better is peace is very, very important.
And with the song, the Ojibwe song that we're singing by Andrew Balfour, the Oma Bindig. Just to hear the harmonies, and we often sing it in a circle, and we're singing in this beautiful native language about earth and water and sky, and it just feels like a great representation of how we are all grounded in the earth.
You see it as an act of reconciliation to learn this song?
Definitely. It's a way to recognize that there were people here first.
At the end of the armed man is a largo section, which is very slow. It's a prayer of thanksgiving. At the end of all the horrors of war that we've gone through during the rest of the piece, it's just a wonderful moment of reflection, and it has some of the most beautiful melodies in the piece.
Those are voices from Better is Peace Mega Choir. They're made up of 150 singers. They are in the Ottawa region, and you might have caught that nod to local. Andrew Balfour in that piece they were singing and talking about from Winnipeg, of course. Let's have a quick look at what's happening on Marge's call-in on Radio Noon. Hi, Marge.
Hi there, Marcy. Well, summer's here. A lot of people getting out. So we're asking you about friendships. How have you gone out and made friendships? Is there a friendship that you value so much? Someone who stood by your side through thick and thin? Give us a call. Join the call-in conversation starting at 12:15 on Radio Noon.
That's a nice thing to start a Monday with.
I think so.
All right, Marjorie Dawhos is the host of Radio Noon. Your CBC News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's sunny and 18 degrees. We're warming up to 26 this afternoon. The city of Winnipeg says it is seeing more housing projects delayed by disputes over who should pay for costly sewer and infrastructure upgrades needed to support new development. The city is now proposing a new system to allow developers who pay those upfront costs to recover money from future projects that benefit from the upgrades. Jeff Milne is president of Progressive Real Estate.
This is a good first step. The more certainty you have going into a project, the more likely you are to do it, right? Which would ultimately just lead to more building and better things for our city, right?
City officials say the issue is becoming more common as Winnipeg pushes for more infill housing in older neighborhoods where underground servicing capacity is limited. Council is set to vote on the changes at its meeting this week. The city of Winnipeg wants your input on zoning bylaws that control what can be built where. Right now, there are two bylaws, one for downtown and another for the rest of the city. Zoning regulates density, building heights, and where services go. Hazel Boris, Director of Planning, Property and Development, says after 20 years, they're looking for Winnipeggers' help creating a single bylaw for all of Winnipeg.
We're mainly asking Winnipeggers two things right now. What's working well about the zoning bylaw? So what should we make sure still remains in the next version of it? And what's really not working so well, and how can we change it?
2 open houses are planned tonight at St. Vital Mall and tomorrow night at the Outlet Mall. The annual Western Premiers Conference kicks off today in Alberta. Leaders will discuss business and their neighbouring relationships during the two-day conference in Kananaskis, west of Calgary. The gathering happens as Alberta comes closer to ever to triggering a vote on separation. Premier Danielle Smith announced last week an October referendum question will ask Albertans if they want to remain in Canada or start the process to hold a binding referendum on separation. BC Premier David Eby has remarked about the irony of meeting with Canadian leadership in a province where the Premier, in his words, appears to be setting the table to leave the country. People in Transcona were shocked yesterday when they saw a car flipped on its side, debris littering Redonda Street. Police say a man was airlifted to hospital in critical condition after a single-vehicle crash. Pam Hafey was surprised to see the Stars helicopter in the city.
I saw the Stars helicopter coming down. My first reaction was, okay, both my boys are home. One of them had just come home, so I knew that both my kids were home.
Stars says it responded to 6 emergencies in Winnipeg over the past fiscal year. Police this morning say the 21-year-old driver underwent surgery from serious injuries and remains in hospital. A road blockade set by the province has been cleared out by First Nations in the Interlake. A bulldozer flattening a pile of rocks set on a road that serves the Lake St. Martin Emergency Outlet Channel. The land around there has been used by First Nations for generations to harvest, hunt, and fish. The Interlake Reserves Tribal Council represents 7 communities in that area. Executive Director Carl Zadnik says the province closed the road without consulting them.
We want to work together. We want to continue, trying to get to a good faith dialogue. And most importantly, we don't want to be restricted on our lands and access to these lands for the livelihoods that we practice culturally.
The province says it restricted access as part of an environmental licensing process, but officials are now reconsidering that decision. A Sikh man in Winnipeg hopes to soon write the exam to become a Winnipeg police constable. Jaspal Singh Gill wanted to write the recruitment exam last month, but was told he had to remove his kirpan first. He says devout Sikhs must wear the ceremonial dagger at all times, and being asked to remove it, he says, felt like choosing between his faith and his dream of becoming a police officer. Now the Winnipeg Police Service is developing a new policy.
I believe once they will have a policy regarding kirpan, then I will not going to face these types of experience in future. And I believe many other Sikh applicants in future who wants to join police service will not going to face these types of experience.
And he says he hopes the new policy will be more inclusive. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather Wells.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Sierra for a last look at the, it's been a quiet morning on the commute.
Yeah, it's been pretty quiet this morning, other than a couple of construction projects that are kind of ramping up today. And a new one that I want to make sure to let folks know about. So a new construction zone on Waverly from McGillivray to Hennessy there. The northbound direction will be reduced to 1 lane until June 5th for street construction there. So expect delays and use alternate routes if possible. I know it gets very busy there on Waverly during the rush hour. So keep that in mind, as well as the new Portage Avenue as you're heading eastbound, construction there between Kennedy Street and Carlton Street. Your eastbound median lane and the middle lane are closed. So you're down to 1 lane there. So expect delays there. It's construction season, folks.
Sierra Sanders, thank you. As well, thank you, Darren Marash. Thank you, Abby Adeyemi. Thank you from our news department, Heather Wells, Joni Nicolo, Megan Ketcherson, and Darren Bernhardt. Videographer Travis Golby, CA reporter Jim Agapito, and associate producers Chloe Friesen and Michaela Van Kooten, all with items on the show today. And our producers. Our producer this weekend and last week has been Leif Larson, who's the senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba, and Robin Summerfield helping out last week. Abby, what do you know about the weather before we go?
It's definitely going to be a beautiful one. Warm day. Most of the regions will see highs across the south and central regions pushing into the upper 20s, while for the northern side, we should see maybe 4 degrees in the Churchill area. And down south, the Pembina Valley region gets it at 28.
All right, Niverville, I'm coming for you. You've got some gathering to do in that community today. Our live show from Niverville coming up on Thursday. We're back tomorrow, though, with another edition on CBC.